Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Mages, here with LVX 777. Started pretty late today, but I've got a great reason. Did a lot of preparation for today's live stream, so I hope that you have read the first 6 chapters and have taken extensive notes, or at least got some kind of understanding of what's happening here. Seem to be having a little bit of technical difficulties here. Just make sure that everything's all right. If you can hear me in the chat, let me know if the audio is right, or if the music is too loud, or if it's not coming through clear. So if you're just now joining, we just got started. So go ahead and hit the like button and let's begin. So lately we've been studying the book Samkhya Darshan. And within this, we've been talking about the relationship between Purusha, which represents the soul of man, and Prakriti, which represents nature. Now, Prakriti is going to be the manifest expression of all of nature, which means the entire physical plane and even the emotional plane and the mental plane. Everything that is not soul is Prakriti, and soul is everything that Prakriti is not. So we've got two stages of opposites that if you're able to look at from a higher perspective, we're actually seeing one thing expressed in 2 different ways. That's where we get the unity of the masculine and the feminine. It's been a long time, but I am most certainly back. Okay, Storm Crystal says everything sounds good. Awesome, awesome. Sweet. Vincent L. Crystal, peace. Tian Pomeroy, peace, peace. Who loves orange soda? Greetings, greetings. All right, so let's get into some of this detail as far as Purusha is concerned. Again, let me know if the audio is right, because I can't tell from here. All right. So let's dig in. The word Purusha refers to the human soul, right? So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about what this represents. CJ, greetings, greetings. So yeah, the word Purusha, it refers to the human soul. And Purusha represents the prime essence of the human being, all right? Purusha has not much to do with the physical body or the gender of the body. It has everything to do with the spiritual essence of the human, all right? The spiritual essence that transcends all conditioned aspects of Prakriti. We're talking about unconditioned consciousness, okay? So Purusha represents the outcome of nature. Purusha represents all of time and all of space and how it exists as a linear expression of the totality of the soul. All right, so what that means is that if you were to zoom out of time and space and you were to see time as one whole thing, if you were to see space as one single point, you'd have a much clearer picture of what Purusha represents. So one of the big reasons that we have difficulty grasping what the soul is because we exist currently in the limits of time and space, whereas what we're dealing with transcends time and space. So a good way to start picturing what soul is, what Purusha actually is, we've got to understand a perspective where time and space are condensed into a single point. So in other words, soul isn't bound by the limits of time, and it's not bound by any of the limitations of space. And it just so happens that the human form is the most efficient form in which Purusha can realize itself in this particular density, right? The human form is a proven, tested form in which manifesting the essence of soul can occur most efficiently through time. And remember that the soul is unconditional, meaning that it exists beyond the parameters of Prakriti's limitations. So Samkhya names Purusha as the only possible state in all of creation for unconditionality to take place. And once again, it's important to note the foundation of the totality of existence is called Purusha. The foundation of the totality of all existence, that's what we call Purusha. So at the very same time, the foundation of the human essence is also called Purusha. So remember, Purusha is not simply the human soul, but the very foundation of what we refer to as the soul, the foundation of life itself. Purusha is also not simply the presence of consciousness, but what we can refer to as the foundation of consciousness. The nature of being transcendental means that its truth is beyond the definition of common terms. Right? Purusha is unconditioned. It is not formed. It's not limited. Purusha is expressed as both nature and the awareness of its existence within the self. Purusha has absolutely no properties, but for the sake of our understanding, we can refer to it as the divine absolute. So in the human, Purusha is expressed as what we call the soul. Alicia M, peace, peace. Nana Taharaka, peace. Praying Mantis, peace. Nuru, peace. Greetings. So let me know if you guys follow along so far. Really, these last 3 chapters got into detail as far as what Prakriti was and what Purusha was and what the 3 gunas represented. So this is kind of a recap and a little bit more detail on how to really be able to conceive Purusha. Because like I mentioned, Purusha transcends human language and human limitation. So one good way to begin understanding what that represents is by understanding the limit of representation, the limit of nature. In a way, by studying what nature is and what Prakriti is, at the same time, we can come to an understanding of what Purusha is not. Naturally natured, good evening. Keaton Chavez, peace, peace. So Samkhya is actually really ancient, right? On paper, it goes back about 5,000 years. According to word of mouth, it goes back to even 12,000 years. So what we're talking about is a way of understanding reality before most of the symbols of mythology came to give us our religions, right? So we're talking really about a form of understanding the world in very simple terms. I mean, it sounds complex, but very simple terms as far as not having to rely on anything too abstract. So what makes Samkhya so relevant is that it's the most primeval spirituality, right? It's free from the layers of mythology and it's free from the layers of symbolism that other spiritual explanations are full of, right? Samkhya addresses the concepts directly. We have 2 fundamental notions, Purusha and Prakriti, right? Prakriti is everything that exists. Purusha is what gives rise to the existence of everything. Now, what is beautifully reflective of the soul within our nature is the ability to create and the ability to exercise awareness of all that exists, the ability to exercise awareness of everything that does exist. The very function of our awareness is proof of the soul. Prakriti is everything that objectively exists. Purusha is that which gives rise to conscious awareness of objectivity. Now, understand that when we talk of Purusha and individual conscious awareness, this conscious awareness is not limited to psychological individuality. It is not limited to your personal ego. We're talking about subjectivity in an absolute sense. So think of this absolute subjectivity as a place where objective existence acknowledges itself, right? Where objective existence finds meaning, a state where matter becomes self-aware. Hence the phrase, know thyself. Bengali, peace, peace. So know thyself, right? Know thyself. So this is what we're talking about when we say that phrase. We're talking beyond just ego and beyond just the physical. It's where absolute subjectivity can come into an understanding of objectivity, where mind recognizes matter and sees itself within that. Not necessarily know your emotions and know your memories and know your ego, but know that aspect of yourself that exists even beyond all those things. Now, speaking of know thyself, here's where things get really interesting, right? So please understand what I mean when I say transcendental. Transcendental means that it supersedes and extends beyond what we can conceive. This is crucial to grasp because the source of our individual experience is transcendental. The source of our individual experience is transcendental. It's beyond everything that we know. It's beyond matter. It's beyond memory. The source of our subjectivity is also the same source of objective reality. So both matter and consciousness is founded upon the same essence, right? That's crucial to understand. This is super key and very important. And here's why. Because objectivity and subjectivity originate from the same foundation. The human, as the conscious subject, has the potential to become acquainted with absolutely everything that exists in nature, right? Because it all originates from the same source. So this explains the root of psychic ability. This explains the root of what we call siddhis. This explains all manner of so-called supernatural phenomena, right? The root contains the fruit. For the very fact that objective reality and subjective reality originate from the same foundation, this explains why we're able to have things like telepathy and astral projection and remote viewing and everything beyond that, because the point of origin is the same. Within Purusha, we have both the prototype for anything that could possibly exist. So when we go within and we exercise these different practices of meditation and things like that, we're able to come into an awareness of that root level. And this is why certain experiences begin to open up to us. MC Maestro, peace, peace. Kefri the God, peace, peace. So think about this as well. The essence of human consciousness was within humans. If the essence of consciousness was within humans, that is to say, if the essence of human consciousness originated within the body and the ego, we would not have the potential to expand beyond our body and our ego. If consciousness originated within the body and the ego, then we would forever be limited to that, right? If that was the case, we would not have the potential to expand beyond. We would forever be limited and conditioned by the body and the ego. As a matter of fact, this is what makes our lives seem so limited, because we identify with body and ego. Because we believe that we are limited to body and ego, we keep identifying with psychology and physiology. So once we overcome this identification, we become open to the endless potential of the soul. So think of this. The consciousness of our soul is equivalent to what we call space, right? Space contains everything within itself, right? Think of space, this infinite void, this infinite womb that everything is contained within. So space contains everything within itself, all events, all phenomena. Our soul also is the divine consciousness which holds within itself the entire universe. So this is the notion of the element Akasha, the fifth element. And just like the universe is an infinite field of manifestation of all possibilities, this includes the possibility of ignorance. We can also exist in a state of not being aware of ourselves and of our soul potential, because that too is a possibility of all possibilities. So Prakriti, nature, matter, Prakriti exists within Purusha. Prakriti is the universal matrix in which every single thing that can happen will happen. Everything that can happen or can possibly exist has always existed in a dormant state within Prakriti. Samkhya describes Prakriti in ancient times, and we're only just now being able to cognize the concept. Today we call her the universal quantum field, right? The quantum hologram, the matrix from which all form and all existence comes from, right? And if you're interested in that, 3 books that go into that subject are The Divine Matrix by Greg Braden, The Field, The Quest for the Secret Force of the Universe by Lynn McTaggart, and also The Holographic Universe, of course, by Michael Talbot, right? So those 3 books are talking about the quantum hologram and holographic universe and all that stuff. These are just new age phrases for the most ancient concept that we call Prakriti. Very same Prakriti that is talked about in this book and also taught with Shruti. Nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. Looks like Spengali had a question, but I think it was deleted. Society Ejects, peace, bro. Sister Divine, peace, peace, welcome. So yeah, if you're interested in that, and I'm sure most of you have already heard of the holographic universe, but just keep in mind when they're talking about these things, these are just technical and scientific phrases to explain what's happening with Prakriti. Nobody just came up with that within the last few decades. Again, like I said, this is some of the oldest information on the planet. On paper, it's 5,000 years old, and as far as word of mouth, it goes back 10 to 12,000 years. So, talking about consciousness, talking about this holographic universe, Al Dickey, peace, peace. The concept of love, right? The concept of love comes from the understanding of the nature of the soul in relation to matter. Love is a reflection of the soul. Love is coming into an understanding that everything is connected and everything is originating from a common foundation. Coming into the awareness of wholeness and unity is coming into the understanding of what love really means. Love is more than a sentimental attachment. To see the objective manifestation of a thing is to see the energetic expression of it in the hologram, the energetic expression, right? The very nature of this hologram is that it's a fractal. It's a fractal that repeats, right? So what is repeating? What's repeating is an expression of the source. So love is the feeling within us. It's a feeling that's within us when we become aware of that energy, which creates and connects us with the other beings in the whole, right? So when you really expand and come to this point of understanding that all things originate from the same source, you start to lose that false notion of separation, because it's that false notion of separation that all of evil and suffering comes from in the first place. This is exactly why we can randomly enjoy nature and experience love in the sunset, right? We can experience love looking at the ocean, right? Just getting lost in nature as itself. When we're in true communion with another person that we get to know deeply, right? We love because we see ourselves reflected. We see ourselves reflected. You can't see what's not there. Evil and negativity comes from attachment and identification with Prakriti and the emanations of matter. Because in that state, we see ourselves as separate from the soul, and this is where hatred and evil come from. This is a failure to transcend matter. All limitations of spiritual development comes from an inability to consciously discriminate oneself from matter. To know thyself requires us to transcend the limitations of time and space. And what I mean by this is that we must transcend our interpretation of time and space. Freedom from the limitations of time and space already exists for the soul. And to understand that freedom, we have to adjust our interpretation of time and space. Consciously being present in the moment is key. To be specific, we must become aware of our awareness in the present moment. We must become aware of our awareness in the present moment. This happens as we contract time, right, into a singular moment. We squeeze it down into one singular moment, and we contract that singular moment into a singular place, right? And this is done within ourselves. This is done subjectively. We contract and we condense our awareness into the here and into the now. Here and now is the timeless present. This is the lens which we must experience reality in order to know reality at the fundamental level. So when we talk about be here now, we talk about the present. We're talking about condensing time into one single point and condensing space into one single point, because you're not doing this, right? In any given moment, your mind is scattered into the past or scattered into the future, right? And your awareness of your body is scattered across your five senses. When you're scattered, you're weak. That's just the way it is. So in order to rectify that, we've got to train ourselves to bring all of that into the right now, and to train ourselves to do that as frequently as possible. That's the place where we'll find answers. That's the place where we're able to see reality reflected in truth. Society Eject says, I just got the book Samkhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna. Yeah, and what we'll notice is that text is actually in the back of this. And there's at least two more texts on Samkhya. I don't recall the name of it off the top, but I'll grab it here in just a minute. For sure. Corporeal Chaos Consulting, peace. Corporeal Chaos Consulting says the issue of source is going to be a topic on my show tomorrow. Aware of your awareness, yes. Hell yeah. So look, shout out to Corporeal Chaos Consulting, honestly. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., right? 9 a.m. Eastern time. Check out his channel. He's got a show, The Shit Show, The Shit Storm, not The Shit Show, The Shit Storm. He breaks down mythology. He breaks down the relation of mythology to the individual, right? Seeing reality as it is. Awesome. Philip the Prince 777, peace. Nero says every cell contains the code to recreate the whole thing. DNA is that, encoded ropes of light frequencies originating outside time, braided into a ladder, sonically condensing light into matter and biology. Yes. And the more that we start to look at it from a perspective that is beyond the individual, the more that you start to see these patterns at play. And the more that you recognize these patterns, the more that you start to see that it isn't as complicated as we originally thought, right? The patterns are all here for you to observe. If you can understand how to start connecting these dots, how to have this pattern and that pattern, and zoom out and see that it's just part of one pattern, the more that you're able to do that zooming out and that expansion, the more that you'll start to see that there really isn't that many patterns to get to know. When you know like the source patterns, it's almost like a master key that you're able to unlock any door with. That's why I love Samkhya so much, because it serves as like a master key, a master pattern. And I find the same thing when I study Kabbalah. It serves as a master key, a master pattern. So, I mean, I cannot say that one thing is better than another, because it's all dependent on the individual, right? It's all dependent on you, how deep your database of symbology goes and how well you understand what you understand. But ultimately, what I come to realize is that Samkhya and Kabbalah are pristine. Alora, how are you this evening?
Hey, I'm good. I literally just got a massage, so I'm really good. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing really good, I think. Might as well be.
Good.
Shoot. So I'm going into the topic of Purusha and how it relates to Prakriti. So we were just talking about like time and space and being able to understand Purusha and Prakriti by coming into an awareness of the now, the here and the now. So when I say here and now, what I'm talking about is the concept of all of time, right? Not just past, not just present, but condensed awareness of time in the now, and the condensed awareness of space in the now, being present, being here now. And what we find is that time is an aspect of dense Prakriti. Purusha is timelessness. So place is an aspect of Prakriti. Time is an aspect of Prakriti. Purusha is omnipresent. We experience time and place due to our identification with matter. Soul essence is not found in matter, right? It's not found in matter. Soul's not to be found within nature. It exists in the consciousness that transcends matter. Please understand that. Because of this, those who search for the soul within matter will never find it. That's an endless search. We search endlessly and aimlessly for the cause of something that is causeless within the realm of illusion. Right? Do you remember how in this text he continued to say that Prakriti is the cause of all causes, but in herself there's not even a cause. And in Purusha there is no cause or effect, because Purusha soul does not exist in the realm of cause and effect. Right? So when we search for the soul, that which has no cause within the realm of cause, it's literally going to be an endless search because it's not even here. The only point where we'll be able to experience the truth is when we contract our awareness of time and space into a single point of here and now. We cannot find it in the external world of objects. So when we rely on time and object to define the deeper layers of soul, we continue to suffer, right? As long as you're projecting your search externally and based on objects, you're just going to keep hurting yourself emotionally, mentally, and even physically. So a major difference between the levels of consciousness between man and nature, between lower level beings and higher level beings, is the potential for self-awareness. All living beings have different levels of potential self-awareness. Most all beings are only aware of objects, right? They do not have an awareness of themselves as being the subject, right? We can talk about animals, we can talk about plants, we can talk about rocks, and all these other forms of life that inhabit the planet. They exist by experiencing external objects, and even many people to that degree, right? Most all beings only have awareness of objects. They don't have an awareness of themselves as being the subject. Because of this, they're not capable of changing themselves. Only refined humans have the capacity to become aware of themselves beyond their objectivity. I said the capacity to become aware of themselves beyond just the physical nature, to beyond just what you identify as psychologically, right? To be self-aware is to be fully aware of your subjective nature in its relation to your objective nature. This is why we've been talking so much about the mind and about the ego and about the higher self, because it's crucial to understand the distinction between these different layers. In this realization, we begin to experience the concept that we receive our consciousness and our essence from something that transcends both subject and object, something that surpasses even nature and mind. Consciousness cannot come from nature. It can only come from that which is already conscious. And this consciousness exceeds everyday cause, and it's called Purusha.
I was about that today, it's like this is where they say conscious reality is the dream itself. Because have you ever thought about, like, when you're dreaming, right? All these events and experiences are happening to you and around you, but you're not, and you're aware that you're a part of the dream, but you don't actually recognize that you're in the dream until you say, I am dreaming. which is a next step of self-recognition, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden the dream itself begins to change, because what was the experiences, what you were thrown into as the experience, is no longer just happening to you because you're seeing its potent cause. I am sleeping. This is why I'm in a dream. I'm in a dream. Things are changeable now. Things are not functioning as they appear anymore. I'm not at the whim of this. So when we're talking about like Prakriti and Purusha, right? Prakriti is causeless. It is the expression. All of this is simply an expression of the potent cause. And the potent causes are of the three gunas: Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. That is what makes up Prakriti. Purusha is what extends beyond the gunas, because that is the consciousness. Prakriti simply is the action. It makes the matter. This is all the expression, but it's the expression so then Purusha can recognize itself. So yes. The key to tapping into Purusha is recognizing that Prakriti is a part of this, but it is your consciousness, your self-recognition, true recognition, that waking up in the dream, that is Purusha. And I think we oftentimes get swept away in the dream of our waking reality, because we think that is what's real. We think that is what's recognizable because we can see it, taste it, sense it, smell it. But just as what you were saying, Trav, about time and space, even time and space is something that is an expression that is created by Prakriti in order for there to be an expression of cause and effect. There has to be limitations for that to be a functioning expression. If you're to look outside of that expression, there is no limitation. In space, there is no time, there is no space, there is no limitation at all. So that's what I was. It's kind of like the flame. It's kind of like the heat, recognizing it's a part of a flame of fire. But even then, that's not even a really good argument, because the fire doesn't recognize itself. If it did, it would say, I burn. It would know that, but it doesn't. So that within itself is an expression of Prakriti.
I burn.
I burn. Water would say, I flow, right? But these things don't happen. So for us to be in this chain, in this reality, in this current experience right now as human, is considered an act of evolution, because we're now in a position where we can recognize where we are in the dream and take steps to surpassing our own limiting belief systems about what is matter, what is gross, what is subtle, what is sentient and what is insentient, and what is truly self. But if we keep limiting ourselves to time and space and just kind of our everyday realities, we're not going to be connecting to that level, because we're still relating
something limited.
Right.
Nira says something interesting in the chat. Searching for the soul inside actual matter would be like actually searching for Rihanna inside your radio or laptop. The vessel is just the apparatus which tunes the ethereal signal.
Yeah.
Sadi right. Says, yes, Alora, just like they talk about in Passive Poverty and Nivriti, Mr. Soul and Hotel Earth.
Right.
Okay, so speaking of the dream, there's a few things that I did want to say about psychic ability, these different dream states, and how we collectively create through the collective unconscious. So basically, when we speak of psychic ability, we have to understand this concept of everything originating from beyond cause and effect within Purusha. As seers and as mystics, we expand our capacity to rise above that which is seen, right? We glimpse beyond the expression of nature and into the essence of nature. We are in a lower plane, and from what we're observing, we remain unaware of it, right? Consciousness is the very act of overcoming the observed. We become aware of the qualities beyond what is obviously expressed. To even be able to do this is a testament to the fact that we are truly beyond incarnation in time and space. What we actually are is truly beyond incarnation in time and space. We become aware of the qualities of the things that are expressed. Because like I said before, many expressions of life in this plane are not aware of themselves subjectively. They're just aware objectively of their environment, and we call that instinct. So remember, consciousness cannot come from nature. It can only come from what's already conscious. And what is already conscious is something that transcends nature. It is beyond that which is conditioned, right? So the relationship between Purusha and Prakriti is understood now as the relationship between the conscious and the unconscious, right? So now we're starting to tap into psychology. There's a lot of yourself that is unconscious. And what we find is through this type of work that we're doing, whether it's shadow work, whether it's working with the goetic spirits, whether it's astral projection and chakra, whatever, we're shedding light on those aspects of ourselves that are unconscious. So conditioned nature is only the materialization of the unconscious, right? Understand that. Conditioned nature is only the materialization of the unconscious. We experience Prakriti as objectivity because we're oblivious to our relationship to the unconscious. So in this way, Prakriti is truly the mirror in which the soul recognizes itself. This is exactly why humans are considered the microcosm in the universe as a whole is considered the macrocosm. We're the microcosm, the universe, the whole universe we're the microcosm, the universe is the macrocosm, right? Microcosm means the cosmos in miniature. So all the same laws that operate in nature that operate in the universe are compressed within us. So this is yet another reason as to how astrology works. The same patterns that regulate the universe regulate our bodies and regulate our minds. So we are in unity with the cosmos at all times, just being in different degrees of awareness of that unity. So to become self-aware is to become aware of your expression as the universe. The cosmos reveals itself through us individually and through us collectively. So everything that we do is an expression of the cosmos. Some are more aware of this connection, and some are completely oblivious to this connection, or I should say unconscious to this connection. And this is really where we can start to speak of free will and autopilot, right? Nature becomes the mirror of the soul. And there's millions of individualized expressions of soul that incarnate through Prakriti. Our collective presence is what creates this physical reality. The entire physical plane is a collective impact of every conscious soul. So when we sleep, we go into a dream-filled sleep, and then we go into a deep dreamless sleep. All right. In this deep dreamless sleep, we are reabsorbed back into the soul temporarily. In this level of existence, it's also known as the world of Bria in the Kabbalah, right? Prakriti at that stage is unmanifest. So for that short period of time that we're in that dreamless deep sleep, we transcend incarnation for a short time. And in that moment, the soul identifies with, when we wake up in that moment, the soul identifies with the body. And this is when we come back to experiencing incarnation. So we wake up again and we find ourselves projecting within Prakriti, right? We have to remember the soul doesn't do anything. The soul doesn't move, doesn't do anything. Only the projected body within Prakriti moves. So this includes the projected body within the physical plane, as well as the projected body into the etheric plane and the astral plane and the mental plane, right? These different planes only represent different levels of materialization. So at the higher levels, thought and feeling are undiluted. and they happen simultaneously, right? So the higher planes, they allow for rapid manifestation because they're closer to what source is. While the lower planes, it allows for slower manifestation because the change, the difference is due to density. So in the astral plane, in the astral state, in the dream state, things manifest almost immediately because there isn't much to limit the development at this stage. In the imagination or the etheric plane, things also manifest relatively quickly, but they're slowed down due to the progression of time. And then finally, in the physical plane, things manifest extra slow because of the limitations of time and space working together. So our experience of reality has everything to do with what perspective we're witnessing from. From a physical perspective, the soul has an incarnated body inside of nature. From a higher perspective, the perspective of soul, consciousness is seen as the silent witness. So in that state, the body is recognized as one of the soul's thoughts. It becomes seen as a projection, and that projection has the illusion of motion and change.
Right. And when you discuss body, you mean it's all of the sheaths as well. Like that's another thing, like I think a lot of us get confused with, because we think because we have this really intense dream and we have this interaction with this spirit, oh shit, now I'm with Purusha. And it's like, nope, because that's still an expression of Prakriti. That's still an expression. Anything that causes a manifestation is from the causeless one. It is from the primordial cause itself, which is Prakriti. That's where it's always going to be from. So any type of action or experience you have is a product of Prakriti. It doesn't mean that then everything is false. The whole point of this journey is to come into the state. When you come into the state of Purusha, Purusha is the observer. So it's the one that is detached. That's why the yogis are always saying detach, 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 practice detachment. Because when you can see that it is a play that's being reenacted, when you see nature for what it is, it no longer has the same effect on you. That's your consciousness that's coming into that stillness there. It's aware of what's going on. It's not the experience itself. The experience is Prakriti, always, always. And this is where too they say that, Prakriti is imperceivable. You cannot perceive what Prakriti actually is. They utilize these terms like the gunas and these kinds of and this verbiage to help us understand it as we're gaining recognition. But the true Prakriti cannot be actually conceptual. It cannot be limited into a perception that we have. There's a certain level that you reach where it has to be through experience that you learn what Prakriti is. And even then, it's just a part of it. So that's where that detachment comes in. That's where coming into the role of the observer comes in, and not being influenced by the experience itself.
Absolutely. Excellent point. Greetings, Maestro. How do you feel about that?
And gems dropped. I think the uniting theme between all this is pretty much what Jack Parsons was giving in The Oath of the Abyss. And what really hit is when you said that that Prakriti is just a reflection of the unconscious, and that stresses the work that we do. That's why certain things like NLP, sleight of mouth are important, wink, wink, but because reality runs on this, basically this background programming. Not necessarily the program that you see, like you open an application, like I open YouTube, open Zoom, here's what I see, but there's tons of stuff going on in the background. Same with our own cheetah. We have beliefs encoded in these five senses, ingrained in these five senses, and we learn in Ajna Chakra that they get cycled up through mana. So eventually you're going to have to observe the unconscious things in conscious awareness. Just like the program could be running in the background. When I finally open it up, now I'm just observing it. But the programming was still there.
Yeah.
And also too, that made me think of the Sri Yantra, how each layer, there's like 16 layers, but each layer is a set of sheaths until you get to the center. The center is where Purusha is at. Going outward are different levels. Our goal is to be aware of all those levels. And you also said that worded it greatly to where this liberation is recognized by expanded awareness. It's not the superpowers. And he's in the chat actually. Peace Arius. What he says on the shitstorm is like, it's not through the physical media. It's not through the meat bag. We can't, it's not veganism which gets us to Purusha.
Right.
Are you saying that I've been eating hummus for no reason at all? Just because it
made you feel good.
I mean, all that work on semen retention is not getting me closer to my soul.
And that's the thing too, how we know we're moving in the right direction is when actions that we take start constructing output. The things start to come together. If we're just vegan, no fat, take sage water every morning or something like that, and my life is either the same or deconstructing, something's going wrong. But when you start to move, let's say you're doing one of these exercises that focus on fortifying the subtle bodies, then we get our synchronicities. Now we know we're moving in the right direction. But as that happens, but as that happens, we start to pick up on these little things happening behind the scenes. We start to realize, okay, it's not just the express that's moving, or as Ophio says, you can't move the express with the express. Stop trying to do that.
Right.
Especially in like the modern day thing, hard work and just keep going at it. We're taught to, it's almost like the Amish philosophy where you don't use tools. And we're taught to not use leverage. We're taught to either not go deep or not gain a higher vantage point through cunning, through technology. Like you could build a house brick by brick, hand by hand, but if there's a construction robot right there and all you got to do is upload the blueprint, why are you putting yourself to torture?
Usually
things that we are going.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say the things that we start to realize are like the robot, or it's the blueprint pretty much. We realize the blueprint, but we don't have to keep physical manual labor building this house. Now we can just put the blueprint in the robot. There's a system there. There's formula, framework.
Using higher planes, lower planes.
That's where they talk about buddhi too, right? Like the people who go and look for one answer from one person to another person to another person. You're going to external sources for something that you need to find internally. And you find that through recognition. We can even use that as basic as the concept of like wealth, right? People work 9-to-5 jobs and say, oh, I want to be a millionaire. But that 9-to-5 job is set up to keep you underpaid, below the bosses, right? Now, you can take steps in your spheres of availability to make yourself a boss, right? To make yourself to step into that unlimited wealth. You can take steps into that, but you can't be working at McDonald's saying that you're going to be a millionaire if you think you're going to be working McDonald's wages. Right. And then if you just save enough, right? Because that's not how the system has been set up. You're trying to manipulate something that's already been formed, that's already been expressed.
Right.
That
Learn the level, like in Yu-Gi-Oh, where they had the field cards. If you say you're using bug monsters, and someone places the volcano field card type down to where all the bug type monsters get weaker automatically. You can't play on the field. Know what planes you're playing at. Just like a lower bot up, you can't be billionaire level, but you're in survival mode. Like, oh, I gotta get my McDonald's money, pay my bills, go out. Like, there's, especially at that level, because that's something that I personally had to rewrite step by step. And even the unconscious things pop up. Okay, why isn't this working? And I kind of sit there and realize my habits. I talk to other people. I even talk to family a lot older than me who are still survival mode. And there's two modems. Survival, you get your money, pay yourself. I don't have the book near me, but the Rich Dad Poor Dad. You get the money, you automatically pay your bills, and then you pay your, you buy some shoes. Whereas you can first look at what to put, like understand what to put your money into, understand it, not just, oh, I put my money in the stocks and I put it in the crypto. You got to get, deeper. You have to understand the cycles behind these things. Find something that it pretty much is going to make money. You know how it's going to make money. You know that step-by-step process. And managing your finances as well. You don't need the shoes. You don't need to go eat out. You really don't. Find a way to properly budget your expenses, then you can't really blame anyone. And secondly, intake as well. What type of entertainment are you? Entertainment is not inherently good or bad. But what type of entertainment are you engaging in that's helping you start to identify what the level you're trying to get to?
right. And you bring up a really good point there too, because that's in the realm of desire, right? If you're constantly trying to struggle to be sattvic in a tamasic state, your desires are going to be out of funk because you are not matching up with the potent cause for your actions to begin with. You're looking to the effects to try and find, okay, where's my solution? Instead of going to the cause and really reevaluating that cause and coming up with a combination that'll then get you a different effect. But you have to go to the cause. If that cause is tamasic, then it's going to stay tamasic. That's where they say, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to take the risk. You have to take the risk because you have to go outside of the limitations that you have set upon yourself. You have to go outside of that original cause. You have to see what that is, reevaluate it, and then create a new set of effects, a different set of effects by changing the cause. Because in every cause, there is an inherent effect. But if you can't identify what the cause is, you're going to still be living off of the effects. That makes sense.
I'm going to go a step deeper. I need to bring the book with me. We have the tools now. We have two objective systems that have been rather extensively explored on this channel. Bala, Samkhya. I'm currently finishing up the book with Trump and Kiyosaki, and it's a entire perspective change in terms of the scale of their thinking. They're thinking on very high levels, very wide levels. And even someone saying, oh, I'm gonna start a business. As compared to them, that's very small scale. And something that they also put, giving factors to what they called eliminate risk. They say, I think the chapter was called Getting Rich Isn't Risky. And they were pretty much talking about framework. We have two frameworks that describe reality: top, bottom. That's more than enough.
Right. And that's, and you bring up the money thing, right? A lot of people explore, okay, what's my relationship with money? Thinking that's the cause. But it's not. That's not the cause. There's more subtle effects. There's more subtle activity that's going on beyond what you are perceiving as the main cause. This is where they say you gotta really dive deep into that into all of the possibilities that are within your range, into all of the things that are happening. If you can do that, then you'll be able to restructure your framework. Then you'll be able to identify the framework. Like, being wealthy isn't about the money. The money is an effect. It's an expression of the wealth.
Right. Now, speaking of these terms of cause and effect, like I mentioned before about these different layers and levels of expression, we're dealing with layers of density. And we're talking about success and entrepreneurship and things like that. So I'm also going to get into this fear of enlightenment that many of us actually have, that's disguised as distraction, right? So we know that the closer we are to the higher planes, the quicker things manifest, simply because they're closer to source. Within this state of Akasha, beginning and end exist together. Cause and effect exist together. So of course, in the astral plane, if we're working from that level, we're going to find manifestation tends to be a lot easier because we're in a way grabbing it from a place where it's still together. But like you said, if we try to move a dense hard object with a dense hard object, we're going to face a lot of resistance, because at this manifest level of the physical plane, things are bound to time and space. So it's all about perspective. It's all about the perspective that we operate from. When we operate from this higher perspective, we're able to see the physical body or the etheric body or the astral body as what it is, which is a thought and an aspect of the soul. But if we're trying to work from the angle of a physical body, it becomes a lot more difficult. So, speaking of the soul and realizing life from a higher perspective, many people do have a fear of becoming enlightened. Even in small degrees, right? Because enlightenment actually happens in degrees, right? It happens in layers. It's not just like one thing. We become afraid of losing our attachments and what we've been identified with. And what we keep hearing over and over is, the deeper you get in this understanding, the more that you have to let go and release. And we believe that we'll suffer. And the uncertainty, it terrifies us. I mean, let's just keep it real. Everyone has that fear of the uncertainty. This is part of the reason why we're doing the work and doing the shadow work, to start to release that fear. And we start to believe that losing things and losing what we have is the consequence of spirituality, like the punishment of spirituality, right? Oh, I have to give up meat, and I have to give up sex, and I have to give up my worldly pursuits. Like, that doesn't sound like fun. I still want to enjoy life, right? I've heard people say that. I said that. You know what I'm saying?
So it's unconscious, like, belief systems which has its roots somewhere else, like somewhere completely irrelevant.
That old belief system, and we believe that it's a punishment. So once again, that's coming from the physical perspective and the ego. That's not coming from a higher perspective. So that fear in itself denotes that you're still observing things from the perspective of matter, right? And that ignorance comes from being identified with prakriti, with matter. We fear losing our things. We fear losing our identity. We fear losing our memories as a consequence of awakening. But what we fail to realize is that this so-called loss is not a consequence. It's not a punishment. This emptiness, that's actually the original state, right? So that's the flip right there. People are afraid of losing things, but you have to realize you never had this stuff in the beginning. That's the part of the problem. You think you have this stuff. You identify with something that doesn't exist. So we're afraid to lose what we think is real, all without understanding that we never had it to begin with. So all evil comes from ignorance of our true nature. It comes from blind identification with matter. That's what causes suffering. Not understanding that our eternal nature is beyond the temporary existence of the body and the personality. So when we talk about the origin of hell, what we're really describing is a state of existence where people who are attached to matter have an opportunity to purge themselves of the illusion of identification. And this purging will always be painful to a perspective of matter. This will always be painful to somebody who identifies with matter and with memory. Only illusions cause suffering. All souls who fail to utilize this opportunity to liberate themselves of the identification with the body and the mind during life must be liberated by nature itself. And this is typically an unpleasant experience. Why? Because what life shows us, what life has shown all of us even so far, is that nature does not accept the human soul that identifies itself with nature, right? As long as a human soul or Purusha identifies with Prakriti, there will be suffering. A soul that is identified with body has trouble understanding itself. So evil and suffering is due to externalizing ourselves with matter. This leads to ignorance of the soul and ignorance of our true purpose. Ignorance.
We could take it to the corporate level. If you look, like let's look at like a massive job layoff or something. You have the owner of the company, below him will be CEO, below that will be board executive. At that point in the company, these people are good. Economy takes a downturn, and when they still make their money, company's still running. And on the very lower end, 20 systems, 20 management systems down is the everyday worker. They get laid off. But it's relative to their mindset, their identification. It sucks to say, but if one solely identifies, you know, I'm the bottom worker, one day I'm going to work my way up to management, you know, like it still has that concept. They still have the knowledge. They still have the function of the worker. But at that top level, you're dealing with, and hell, that corporation itself may be owned by an even bigger corporation. So, but their concepts, their identifications, their knowledge, their, I guess knowledge was a good word, but how they operate, they're operating in a completely different sphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I even think about, you know, people who are on this path and have that fear of enlightenment because as part of it, you give up desire, right? As part of that detachment. And there's a lot of people that think, okay, well, once I reach a certain level, I'll be able to like walk through walls, right? And I want to be able to like move matter and shit, right? It's like, well, as long as you're still thinking with that perception, you're still identifying with desire. And if you want to reach a level where you can perform these things, you don't have a desire for it anymore. It doesn't at some point it doesn't actually make a difference whether you do or whether you don't. You kind of just don't give a damn.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up because they're so focused again on the effect of meditating. Or if I study this, I'll be like Gandalf and be like, oh, this old powerful wizard and this orb will show up and I'll be able to control hordes of people, you know, or whatever. And it's like, when you reach that level, though, in reality, you just don't give a damn because you have changed your framework. You are no longer identifying with the human who recognizes themselves through desire.
Right. That's the big shift of what I just mentioned and what I just was studying myself. When you're looking at it from a perspective of being a human, that's where we have all these different, I want to fly and I want to do pyrokinesis and make fire come out. You know, like you see the stuff all over YouTube. Trav, how do I actually evoke a physical demon? Why do you need to do that? You know what I'm saying? Like the only reason you need to do that is because you're clinging to some idea, I want to, entertainment, Harry Potter type shit. But when you're actually doing the work and you start to transcend these desires that come from an unfulfilled ego, this stuff actually starts to come easier because when you're in those levels of desire, you're actually blocking the manifestation. You're blocking it. It's coming from a level of ignorance. But just like you said, if you did have the ability to influence a large number of people, well, I can't speak for everybody, but I would think that at some point you start to move away from trying to manipulate the masses for your own gain because you see it at a different perspective. I was talking to my friend recently about just making certain levels of income. Before, when you're constantly broke and kind of just jump from paycheck to paycheck, it doesn't sound realistic that you can gain a massive amount of money in one sitting or at all, really. But when you actually start doing it on a regular basis, your definition of money changes, right? You start, when you say, for example, you might experience a loss. It doesn't hurt as bad because you know deep down inside you can easily make it back again. That's a different mindset from somebody struggling from check to check. Different perspective, different position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think back to waking up to lucid dreaming, for example, right? Like, I remember I had this dream. I think I explained about it before, but I was having this dream where these demons were breaking through the windows and they were like eating everybody, and I was hiding from them, and I was like scared, right? So in this dream, I am an archetype, right? I am a character that is a part of this movie, and this movie is happening to me. I'm seeing all these people running around being devoured by these demons, and it seems so real. And then at one point, I go, oh, I am dreaming. Oh, self-recognition. I am not the human that is in the room with all these other people getting their heads bitten off and with these demons. I am the consciousness that is aware that this is an experience that is happening to me amongst this plane. Okay. And when that happened, it doesn't mean that demons all of a sudden stopped, but they did wait to see my reaction, because now I was the one who was recognizing them for what they were. And I was able to see deeper into this and be able to go deeper into the analyzation of the dream and realize, oh, this is my fear of stability. I'm going through some big life changes right now in my waking consciousness. This is coming up from a memory that I have as a child that has lived in my system as a belief system. See, this is the subtle matter we're talking about when you start really taking apart your framework and restructuring it. I was able to see these demons for what they were. They weren't demons anymore. The people weren't people anymore. These were impressions from a previous experience that I had perceived in my waking consciousness that then was playing out on this other plane of existence. So when I became the observer of it, I was able to see it for what it was, and it no longer had that pull on me anymore. And it became then dependent on what I chose to see it as, what my revelations were, what my realizations were. So, and then to think that there's even a deeper level than that. What if I hadn't woken up and was able to go deeper into that? Where would that take me? Where would that take me once I surpassed that belief system and continued on this waking reality? That's where self-recognition comes in. Recognize that you're not just an actor in this play. You are consciousness experiencing this expression. So all the things that are happening to you are happening to you. Going to happen, right? But
So, with that being said, I think that is a nice segue into what I'd like to address next about bondage, liberation, and this whole notion of autopilot versus free will. Because the more that we take a look at and understand Prakriti in relation to Purusha, we start to see where we stand, right? Actually, in the chat, Alligator the Greatest says, Alora, right, that's exactly how you take over your destiny through dreams. Demons are merely chaotic energies waiting for you to manipulate them. Right. And in other words, instead, we call them demons, right? But what I would say is the unconscious aspects of reality that have not yet been recognized and arranged in usefulness. As long as they're not recognized and arranged in an efficient, useful manner, they'll continue to work against you. And again, like I said, this is what Prakriti is. Prakriti is the physical expression of the unconscious. This is why your mind creates reality. This is how the subconscious, we used to say that the subconscious mind generates your reality without much of an explanation. But now from this study, I understand, or I have a better understanding, I'll put it that way. What we fail to recognize, we see it as something separate from ourselves. But yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about Purusha and more about Prakriti and this bondage and liberation. So we must realize that Purusha is never bound. Purusha is never bound. Only Prakriti is bound. And he'll get it into that later on in this book. Purusha is never bound. Prakriti is. Only Prakriti is bound, liberated, and transformed. Purusha is always free. And only nature suffers the consequence of karma. I said that before. Only nature suffers karma. Purusha does not. Karma belongs to Prakriti. So freedom of choice, that's where our potential for liberation exists, right? We choose to get stuck on karma, right? Oh, I'm a Gemini, Mercury retrograde. We say that, we claim that stuff, right? I'm a Taurus, moon. We claim that. So freedom of choice is where our potential for liberation exists, right? For us to choose freedom, we have to learn to be consciously aware of the here and now, aware of the presence of the source within ourselves. The only humans who are not free are the ones who don't know that they can be free, right? You don't even got to be super spiritual to recognize that. I remember seeing a story of a certain town in Arkansas, I want to say, where the black folks did not know that slavery was abolished, and they were still living like the old days up until 1980s, I want to say. Nobody told them that slavery was done. You know, so the only humans who are not free are the ones who don't know that they can be free. Instead, we listen to other slaves and other slave masters, right? We forget about our true nature. Liberation cannot be acquired from matter, but from transcending matter. So ultimately, the essence of distinguishing Purusha from Prakriti is the same thing as liberating humans from the bounds of the unconscious, right? Liberating humans from the bounds of the unconscious. The unconscious is what binds us, right? Just like we talk about the habit and these subliminal influences that cause us to make decisions and choices. All those things are unconscious, and they literally control your behavior. You're not operating under free will unless you address those unconscious subliminal motives. So liberation cannot be acquired from matter, but from transcending matter. So we have to come into a realization of Purusha as the immovable, timeless center, right? And again, the image of mystical Kabbalah comes to mind, where you see the shape of a human figure, and then you've got the tree arranged around it, right? Exactly like that. So check this out. We have to come into a realization of Purusha as the timeless, immovable center. And Prakriti is the always active and conditioned wrapping of that center. Just like that tree of life is wrapped around Purusha, right? This wrapping forms our world. It forms our psychological makeup. It forms our karma. Once we begin to realize this, Purusha reveals itself as the center which shapes everything around it.
Right. Prakriti forms your demons. Demons, the way how I see demons and all of that, they're nothing more than quantum physics. They're nothing more than particles, right? All of it's Prakriti. All of it's still matter, just less dense.
I would even say it's cheating.
Something that you got it is how self is into this Purusha, Prakriti, and like conception of self. And what I like about Samkhya is that they break down what we know as the psyche or mind, the Ata Karana, the inner tool. And there's it's a little experiment I run playing with my dog. I get a treat. It's like a small treat, hide it in my hand, put it behind my back. I let him choose. Sniffing without any like of his advantages. And slowly but surely he's starting to intuitively pick up which hand it's actually in. But that takes not only a recognition of other patterns, but also a recognition of how your algorithm works. And more importantly, how you fit objectively, or how does the concept of you fit objectively into your framework. The framework is supposed to be objective as possible. We could have a framework but place ourselves in subjectively. I'm this happened to me, blah, blah, blah. it really has no place. The reason why these old frameworks works is because there's no place for to throw some goofiness in there.
Right.
And you really have to like break yourself down, like how we have the three animal brains inside of us. Break those down and recognize them. Break down your habits, why you do them. Break down the systems of the body. We have circulatory system, respiratory system, digestive system. We got things working in tandem with each other, but they work irregardless of you. Like if you weren't alive, this stuff would still exist. Learn that and then base yourself off that, not the other way around.
Right, right. And that will help. And why? Because that will help us to understand what belongs to nature and what does not. All those things that you named, that belongs to nature. It's automatic. Right. Two things to understand about Prakriti. Prakriti is unconscious and has no will. Right. Patrusha attracts Prakriti like a magnet attracts metal shavings. Did you guys ever get to do that experiment as kids where you'll have that magnet and you pull the little iron filings around it and they all just arrange around that magnet, right? That's exactly how Prakriti shapes around Purusha, just like that tree of life forms around Adam Kadma inside there, right? So ultimately, distinguishing Purusha from Prakriti is the same thing as liberating humans from the bounds of unconscious, because we understand what are the metal shavings and what is the magnet, right? So Prakriti has no will. Patrusha attracts Prakriti, just like those metal shavings. So when the metal shavings move towards that magnet and they take form according to the field of energy surrounding that magnet, the metal appears to have life. It appears to have life, but life belongs to Prakrusha, not to Purusha, not Prakriti. And also, one thing to understand that we do get further in this book is that Prakriti produces for the benefit of Purusha. That's what he says, not for the benefit of itself. Prakriti does not create for the benefit of itself. She creates for the benefit of Purusha. So Prakriti is not conscious, so it cannot produce for itself. The same way that a cow produces milk for a calf, right? The same way that a breast creates milk for the baby in a very automatic way. You don't just choose to start making breast milk. It happens because a baby is near. Even it doesn't have to be your baby. Some women who are in the same living space as a newborn child have been known to produce milk, right? So it's an extremely automatic process. The same way that happens, that's the same way that Prakriti takes actions to benefit consciousness, right? It's a pattern, and it's a pattern that has purpose. That's the other thing. The pattern has a purpose. The intelligent patterns of our body chemistry, our cells, our nervous system, everything that you just said, the patterns of nature and the behavior of humans and animals, that's called instinct. The instinctual and primal patterns, they happen unconsciously. They just happen on autopilot. The same way breast milk is produced in the presence of a baby on autopilot. The same way metal shavings form around a magnet in a seemingly intelligent pattern, right? This primal instinct is not free will. This is an expression of unconscious patterns. These patterns exist to facilitate the consciousness that comes from Purusha. These are mechanical functions of nature. Mechanical. And they're necessary for life.
Right. And to at least relate this back to, I guess, the practice where everybody's coming from is some type of practice in the occult, namely manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad earlier in the chat that you posted that thing with, forget the deity, Bhavani, if I'm not mistaken, and the Yod Hey Vav Hey formula. What those things are, I always use the analogy of an assembly line. We are not only the makers of the product, but we are ultimately the designers and the receivers. What ends up happening though, people stand from the perspective, or I should say anyone starting out or anyone identifying with matter stands on the out, they're the consumer. They're standing at the very end of the assembly line, the very end of the whole logistics when it comes to shipping all the stuff out. But If we're proactive, we decide, okay, what materials go in. If we're making honey buns, we're going to need sugar, we're going to need honey, we're going to need dough, all sorts of stuff. And at various stages, like in, I'm going to say that, I'll leave that into class. That's too deep. Various practices we do are meant to organize the different stages of this assembly line. We have been talking about elementals a little bit for like the past month or so. These are the specific components of that place in the machine. They're not the whole thing. It's not saying work with elementals. It's saying they have their place. This is what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that you give that magnet example. Like these things organize themselves around. If it just comes to us raw, unfiltered, good luck. That's all I'm gonna say. But for like, so you order, it's like ordering stuff, but you don't have a box to put it in. The product could get damaged. There could be a whole lot of other stuff dropped on your door. It's ordered, it's quantified, it's mathematically mapped. That's why logistics is very important, because it organizes shipments of probably millions of items. You can't just have them all together, just stacked on top of each other, and then you open the container, everything falls out. Everything's wrapped specifically. There's specific measurements, there's specific temperatures and whatnot. It's the same thing that we're doing with the occult work. Now the framework tells us is this spot, these spots on the machine do specific functions. We know what goes in here. We make sure these things run right. And that's basically the end result, but it also benefits the man behind the consumer. The ultimate consumer is still producer. He's also the producer and the consumer.
Assembly line, with Malkuth being the final product being delivered to your doorstep. A well-oiled machine. Now, it does have an aspect that just runs automatically, but the efficiency of that system can be greatly improved if you become aware of how the system works. The same with the animals, they don't have to learn how to have sex and procreate. That's kind of built into the system. But if an animal were to learn how to organize a society, well, that would change the whole game for that animal. Likewise with us, you don't have to be taught how to have sex and fight somebody and eat food. That just comes with it. So that's nothing special, right? Your sexuality is not special. Your sexual orientation is not something special.
But Trav, I identify with my label and pronouns.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. Figured out a way to address that quite as neutral as I'd like to, so I prefer not to talk about it. But that's nothing special. That doesn't make you unique or special at all. That's just a part of the system. Everybody's got that. Literally everyone has that. So if we want to talk about uniqueness and what actually makes you special, it's going to have to involve an awareness of something beyond just what came with your animal body, right? That's like saying, hey, I got 5 fingers on my left hand. You going to celebrate somebody for that?
Right. Or like, I always think of it as like computer parts. There's no use. Like, say there's someone with a company and they have a quantum computer damn near at their personal disposal. And then you'll be out here with your laptop, comparing your laptop to other people, like, look what I have, look what I have. Yeah, the parts are different, but they're still really like parts that serve the same function. Mm-hmm. You still have a laptop. If anything, compare yourself to the dude with the quantum computer. Then you know how much more you have to go. Like, oh, look, my laptop has, 16 gigabytes of RAM. You only have 2. Like, you're still in the same game. You're still in the same race. You're still in the same field. It looks good because you're comparing yourself to, like, the super average, the surface level of what you perceive as average. Matter of fact, the quantum computer still has those same components, really.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me.
Go ahead.
That reminds me of the metaphor that I see Aries using all the time. as far as like you being this occult person, but you choose to go out there and beat up on Christians and religious folks, right? Of course they don't know what the hell they're. Of course they don't know what you know. They don't even study it. They don't care about it. They just care about Jesus and their day-to-day lives. So like it doesn't make sense for me to go out and try to start war and arguments with Christians because it's not even. If I'm going to do that, then I might as well approach somebody who's also studying what I study, right? Because otherwise, that's what is that? That's like a 10th grader beating up on a third grader. What are you doing?
And or learn their technology, learn the ins and outs of Christianity, study it, and then go. Don't. Oh man, look at this, man. I got this mystical Kabbalah. I got the Samkhya Darshan. Christianity is not. They're not going to understand. They're not going to even have a conception.
Nope.
NLP, where they talk about going to the person's bus stop. We're trying to like remote call another bus stop and expecting it to work.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Alora?
I agree. I mean, I just think in my head, like, if you're going to be even, if you are claiming yourself as an occultist, right? Like, these are terms that we use so we can communicate, I guess, the belief systems that we're following, that we're learning from, right? The path of knowledge that we're trying to walk. But there's also there's that level of identification where it's like, are you really what you say you are? Like, what are you truly identifying with? And if you feel so entitled to identify yourself as an occultist, but then go off on someone who's Christian or something like that, it's like, what comes to my mind is, why the hell would you care? If you've reached a certain level where you feel comfortable, it doesn't seem like that's the cause of your pain. It seems like you got something that you haven't identified or recognized within yourself yet, that it's creating a limitation for you. So it's kind of like, I don't know, that's what I think. Like now when people ask my preference, just like, I just tell them I'm a learner. I study this stuff, and that's all I kind of tell them. And then they come up on their own with belief systems and identifications for me, categories to put me into.
Right.
So it's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. And if you still care, then there's something in there that perhaps you need to recognize within yourself in order to get to that next level. That next level that we're talking about, which is identifying what is Prakriti and what is Purusha.
In the chat, Society Eject says, yep. And most people that does that trying to convince themselves. Very true.
Yeah. Especially when we see, or hear, I should say, the phrase, well, I feel. Once those three words, once I feel, it's over.
Right. Well, I just feel
there's logic in the sense of cause, effect, and meaning, like the objective definition for logic. There's no logic as to how that actually constructs sense. I just feel, once they say I just feel, it's some way. Man, that happened long before you met me.
Right. I learned that from NLP, from Snyder. We don't say things on accident. When someone says, well, I think, and someone says, well, I just feel, that's not an accident. When they say I feel, it's coming from an emotional place. And like you just said, that is an emotional belief that has probably existed before we even had this conversation, which means even though we're talking, you probably weren't listening, but you've been triggered and now you want to express what you've already been feeling, which also has taken it out of the realm of intellect, and we're just repeating your feelings now. That's not science anymore. Now we're getting personal, and you're liable to get upset.
And or something from Snyder as well. They said anger is just another form of fear. And I thought back to even my own childhood when my parents have gotten mad to start detaching emotion from these instances. And like, and I talk to my parents about certain of their beliefs, and then they'll get mad, Then I start to realize that there's something it'll be something way off, something way to the side, like say in 1988, there was a white kid who shot a slingshot at my dad and accidentally hit him or something like that. And then today we'll hold that grudge against white people for for no other reason than that. But we'll mask it with all the Illuminati, the
Yes.
German banks, any like you name it. And that's what makes pretty much all propaganda effective. People are gonna have some content that they're waiting to throw. They're waiting to throw content into something.
Oh yeah.
All you gotta do is supply a basket. It doesn't even have to be high quality. You supply any old faded Tupperware, you have a follower.
Right, right. And especially, and see, this is a part of how mimetic magic works, especially when people are very sensitive. Say, for example, with the passing of Kevin Samuels, all you had to do was post a picture of him or just a quote, and you know there's going to be certain women in the chat, you know what I'm saying, didn't read the post, didn't see nothing in it. They got a pre-prepared thing they want to say about Kevin Samuels. And even dudes, if a woman posts something about Kevin Samuels, here they go jumping in, right, with something to say based on something they already felt, right? Mimetic magic is literally just pulling the strings that already exist, because most people are not aware of their behavior or why they behave the way that they do.
I
You
sent a
can
video
literally sit
to
up here and teach.
I sent a video to my cousin. After Kevin Samuels' death, started rewatching a lot of his older stuff and his actual breakdown, his actual framework and whatnot. And then, because most people just clip the reactions, like the emotional parts, but the emotional parts are just the effect of what he was dropping beforehand in the video, which is the most important part of his stuff. And he dropped one for young men, what to do between the ages of 21 and 35. I sent that to my cousin today. It's like an hour-long video. He sends me he sees it automatically, then 30 seconds later, he sends me a voice message. He said, I ain't gonna watch that. Fuck that Kevin Samuels. I'm just gonna do what I'm trying to. I was like, already a pre-prepared message.
Right, right. And it hurts to understand, but most people in your life operate in this way. This is yet another reason why you can't try to save the world and tell everybody, hey, you need to study this instead. Hey, man, study the Kabbalah instead. No, that's not going to work, because most of these people in your life, they've already got their beliefs concrete.
Past the age of 10, without deliberate effort to alter anything, good fucking luck. You can't, there's no bringing this stuff to somebody. And I'm going to say past the age of 10, don't try it. Just don't do it.
I think what really helped me in determining who I could have conversations with and who not was to learn other people's languages first. So how do they refer to themselves? If I ask you what you do for a living and you say, I am I know that is a self-identifying, that is something that you have identified as a part of yourself. But if you say, I work in, then you may not be as committed to that identification. So little things like that, how I might relate to someone. They'll say the same shit about their belief systems or about their values. And then from there, I can know a little bit more about, okay, this might be safe territory about this, or it's going to fall on deaf ears. Most of the time it falls on deaf ears because, like everyone was just saying, people already have predetermined responses. They already have a script that they say,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. I found a couple people who I really enjoy their company. I think they're very good people, but I don't really hang out with them too much because when I invite new conversation, right, or somewhat of a slightly deeper topic, just testing the waters, you start repeating sentences. They'll start repeating stories that they've already told me. It's their script, and I'm trying to break and it's like I'm introducing a different script, but they don't have anything prepared.
Yeah.
Called NPCs. They're scripted.
Yes, repeat this same script.
That's pattern interrupt. I love doing that. You can tell. I'd be setting it up too.
I know.
Error. What did you think of the game last week? Nah, what you think about this personal trauma you trying to avoid?
Oh man, that's the
yeah. They're like, they'll go for a second. I'll just look down. Are you hungry? You want something to eat?
Right.
What's on TV right now? If you want to do mind control, just focus on pattern interrupts. That's all you got to do. Face closed.
You want to do mind control? Talk about self-improvement.
And here's the thing, not just the general type, but make it specific. See, when it's general, it's easy to dance around. Yeah, we should all do better. But when you make it specific to the individual, you can't really dance around it.
It's not even to the individual. I found it could be even as surface as talking about my own self-development. Like, you know, as this one friend that I was walking with recently, I was talking about how I'm trying to be more aware of how I speak and how I act, and how every action that I make is intentional. And I really focus in on that. And he went immediately into repeating stories because I could tell within that conversation, he had never fathomed that his actions and his words, no matter what they are always intentional, whether it's on the conscious or unconscious. Like that it never went through his mind of that. And so immediately he just went into like, oh yeah, that's good, man. And then like continue into like repeating a story, going back to, get this, complaining about something.
Yeah, that one. We're talking about states here. So that state of being in a complaining mode, that's home to a lot of people. And you can be positive and try to bring a person out of that state of complaining mode, but that's not their natural habitat. So just like that eagle that was caught in the water by that alligator, they're not able to swim there. They're going to try to get out by any means necessary.
Right. When I think about going back to connecting or to people like, you know, going against Christians or anything like that, I think a lot of people mix up projecting negative energy as self-improvement. You know, it's that entitlement factor. It's that I'm better than you, and therefore I'm going to do everything I can do in order to prove that. And that means that I'm better. I am confirming that I've done self-improvement because I'm no longer in the space where you're at.
And that's also I'm glad Laura brought that up about her friend, because that's also people's, if they do want to change, they don't have the words to express their change. So the closest, that friend heard her talk about pretty much mindfulness. The next thing his brain is gonna do is throw where he could fit into that situation and it'll benefit him. He threw out the complaining personality. It seems like a completely different subject, but it's really on topic. But it's the closest thing to a response they have. You only have 5. You have a response box or something. You could only have 5 responses in there. That's, even though they may seem to have nothing to do with topic at hand, that's the closest answer. And that's something to break down. I had to I always got thrown off by that and then engaged in wherever the conversation, where I thought it was going. But I started realizing, it's still the same conversation. They don't have too much to respond to it with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's actually one of the things that I'm still having to be consciously aware of. Because I remember in the past, like years ago, you know, I'd get upset where I'd be trying to explain to my partner about something, and then it seemed like she just changed the subject. But then I had to realize later on, like you said, there's only a certain number of things that this person had in her database. So she couldn't continue on with me about that subject, but something close enough to her experience. I come to realize that years later, the same thing happens. Some people can't keep up with you in a specific conversation, so they can only give you what they can. And then other times it goes in one ear and out the other, and they just change the subject.
My favorite response is, why do you have to go so deep?
Yeah.
It's so deep.
I think you're just thinking too deep on it.
I just like to leave that conversation. They always have to go so deep.
Can you swim? Need a life
There's
raft?
diamonds underground. When have you heard of some surface level diamonds?
Right?
They not real diamonds, that's for sure.
You kick some dirt over. You look down like, oh man, look, gems. It's not a gem. It could rain right now and that thing washes away. It's not a gem.
Then again, if you've never seen one before, then how would you know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
How would you know?
No. Depth and instead of saying higher advantage, I'm gonna start saying leverage. Depth and leverage are the two aspects to control the situation. So it's kind of hard to educate people onto, because if they don't know, most people won't get leverage, but depth kind of scares them. And that's why, like, we have the allegories of like Leviathan or something being in the deep. It's not just symbolizing unconscious patterns, it's symbolizing workings. But the illusion is broken if you know the working. That's why some people, they can't watch behind the scenes or something like that. Because they're like, oh, I can't enjoy the movie anymore. Because the
illusion is
facade that
broken.
they built around it is now broken because you know the deeper workings. The inner workings, excuse me.
Now, I spoke about the autopilot essence of Prakriti and how the good way to imagine Prakriti over Purusha was, like we said, with the magnet, and you drop the pieces of metal shavings around it, and you'll notice the metal shavings form in a pattern around the magnet. Now, the metal shavings aren't alive, but they're invigorated and vivified by a force that is beyond them, a force that exists whether or not there's metal shavings or not, right? So these patterns that we find in nature are expressions of a force that is preeminent, pre-existent, and primordial to what we know of as nature, or technically as Prakriti, right? These mechanical functions of nature are necessary for life. They are what allows life to transpire, but they can also become an obstacle to self-realization. Because most people who are, in fact, spiritually immature, they observe these automatic patterns and they identify these automatic patterns as free will. But that's not the case, right? As a species, we have certain primal drives, like reproducing. And these primal drives do not come from conscious action or free will. Guess what? Our sexual drive and our desire to reproduce comes from the animal body instinct. It is not free will just because you get horny. That comes from the animal body, which means that if that impulse begins to control your behavior, you're definitely not acting out of free will, right? This is why this type of thought is why we have difficulty sometimes in choosing higher impulses or lower impulses, right? Many of our impulses are a direct result of having a human body, from hunger, right? Seeking pleasure, running from pain. As long as we identify with these urges and fall under the illusion that these urges are our own, as long as we do that, we live mechanically on autopilot. Most humans live following the patterns of natural urges and never act out of free will. This is why you sometimes have difficulty choosing between following the measures of the flesh and following the measures of higher discipline and higher aspirations.
But Trav, I know my thoughts. thoughts are my own. I know my thoughts. That's not animal urges. I know my thoughts.
Are you sure? Where they come from? I do what I want. Where does the want come from?
See, I thought about that today. That's reframed now in our modern language as I'm living my truth.
That's
Yeah.
such a phrase.
Sounds softer, but it's the same thing.
I'm living my truth.
Yeah, don't come over here with that negativity, man. You're always going extra deep. I'm just living my truth.
No such
That's
That
thing.
must be terrible. That must be like I wouldn't want to live in a universe where that's the truth. That's a truth at all.
Right, right. Self-delusion. That
understand the gunas is so important because that's where you get to the root of your emotions, your thoughts, how everything functions. Rajas, tamas, sattvas. Break that down, understand what you're running off of, right? Is it a tamasic state? Is it rajasic? What's predominant? They're all within you and they're all acting around you, but as long as they're manifesting in this reality, they're going to be out of balance. Because if they're neutral,
which one's useful and appropriate in certain situations. Something
right.
that Trout broke down is that chiasterium. That technically counts as tamasic. If we're breaking old thought patterns, that counts as tamasic. If I am working on building some system of currency, now that's rajasic. If I want to sustain something, then that would be sattvic. Maintaining your vessel or your body, I'm not gonna woo-woo it. Maintaining your body, that's sattvic. But like they all have their roles. We just gotta know precisely where they serve the best, and yeah, pretty much that.
Right. And amongst them too are a whole bunch of other things, right? Like it's not like as they were describing, let's see. Let me break out my book. So as they're describing this book too, right? Because the thing about describing nature, right? They say we have the three gunas and that makes up prakriti. However, the three gunas transform because prakriti transforms. It is motion that evolves and grows. So do the gunas. So like in one part, right, you have sattva, which is illumination, happiness, and attraction. You have rajas, which is motion, pain, and rejection. And tamas, which is passivity, indifference, and indifference. But that is just an aspect of each one too. So when analyzing your thoughts or restructuring your framework in order to evolve, right, you have to also go into the fact that, or go into the idea that it's not the thoughts themselves that you're identifying, but the context within the gunas that they're in. Like, is this rajasic? Is this tamasic? Is this sattvic? Is this bringing illumination? Is this bringing laziness? What is this? It's not the thought itself. It's not like oh, I'm thinking about my car. It's not the thought about the car. It's the it's all the other qualities about that thought that you want to analyze to find out what's predominant. That's where like Antar Mauna is such a lifesaver for meditation, because it brings you into the path of the observer. Observe your thoughts. They're going to keep thinking whether you're conscious about it or not.
Observe your thoughts. Which is not something that we do on autopilot, is it?
Mm-mm. No, that takes conscious.
It's like developer mode. Like you could have the program run, or you could have the developer version where it opens up the program simultaneously. It opens up, as a lower reference, the script. The code will be running side by side with the program, when you start observing your thoughts, you're observing the script, how they started. And ultimately, you could change it right there, but you can't do it from the perspective of the robot. You have to do it from this perspective of the programmer.
Right.
Right. You can't be the computer.
So you had mentioned the gunas, right? The gunas, which are the substance of what Prakriti is, right? We often encounter this difficulty of the soul trying to liberate itself from matter, or rather the awareness of the soul trying to liberate itself from matter. All right. So speaking of that liberation and of that bondage, it would be helpful to really get a good explanation of the three gunas. And you did give a good breakdown based off of what was in the book. And for those who don't know, the three qualities of Prakriti are the gunas, which are sattva, rajas, and tamas. And if you look into it, the gunas can literally be translated as strings, right? Gunas, strings. So it is said that these three strings weave together like a rope, right? We talk about bondage, which usually involves ropes tying things up. The three gunas can literally be looked at as these three strings together that form a rope that bind the human soul to the objective world. Or I should say it appears to do so.
Hey man, we gotta make our triple helix DNA to activate my light body in the physical.
Strands. DNA strand, rope, binding.
And they were trying to give it to you. They're like, damn, how do we put this in a textbook, but also give them some game? It's something that Amar pointed out to me, that the K through 12 curriculum gives occult information, but you have to, you either know it beforehand going into it, or you become like realizing it. They're saying like when they have an English class, you have like or as and is to those exercises. So you would say driver is to a car as Purusha is to Prakriti. Certain relationships help you recognize certain patterns inherent in matter. It's literally given. It's in our face the whole time. Now it's becoming aware. Or the allegory I like, where it's something so big you don't even know that you see it.
Public schools dropping game. But again, the mind has to be refined enough to pick it up. Whether it's public schools or a YouTube video or a book like this, the mind has to be refined to pick it up. That's why this ain't for everyone.
Well, we can all manifest and achieve our dreams, Trav.
Sure. We can all become president.
That's the other thing, right? Manifest your dreams. But this is a dream. So what more dreams am I trying to manifest here?
We're manifesting our unconscious mind, right?
Oh.
As long as we're unconscious of it, you're still manifesting. But just, why not? Instead of hating life and attacking these external enemies and complaining, why not recognize what aspect of yourself actually is what you're experiencing?
Right. Find out where the hell you are.
So look, bondage, ropes, the three gunas, right? We always talk about how, well, not we always talk about, but I've seen in books that talk about the astral body, that you see this silver cord attached to your solar plexus chakra, your stomach chakra. How that binds you to your physical body. I wonder where that came from. Right. So we think about these three gunas as these three strings that weave together like a rope and bind the human soul to the objective world. When Purusha appears to be bound to Prakriti, we lose our awareness of being the independent witness. We lose that awareness. So when we liberate ourselves from bondage, the drama and the illusion begin to fade, and the truth becomes obvious. Right.
In trading, there's multiple time frames you could look at. Your strategy, I have the paper near me. Your strategy utilizes multiple time frames, but the higher your time frame, or the more time it encapsulates. Like say this: if you're in the 4-hour frame, it's going to print one candle every 4 hours. If it's a daily frame, it'll print one candle a day. Weekly, one candle a week. But through the higher frames, you get the entire picture. Like you can tell where stuff is going quite easily. But if you're on a micro frame, like the 15-minute, 5-minute, 1 minute, some people even trade seconds. But there's no possible way you could make a long-term call. And I had a friend of mine call, like, we were on the phone maybe 5 days ago or so. Pulls me up. He's like, "Oh, where do you think it's gonna go right now?" And I'm like, "No, I think it's gonna go down because." But if I want to get really technical, it has not printed a candle right now, so it's impossible to tell you. But I'm looking at the chart and it shows what's going on. So okay, what time frame you at? This man said 15 minutes. I was like, bro, all right, we got to change the subject.
Yeah. I felt that at one point.
In the lower time frames as well, there is a lot of illusion. There's a lot of it. Say if it's going down on the higher time frame, there isn't a lot of illusion on the lower time frame. It looks like it's going up. It looks like it's about to go to the moon. But in the larger scheme of things, no. And that's where people get caught up in emotion as well when they're trading. They get caught up in these little micro movements, but in the big scale, like it could be going up solid on the large frame, but on the small time frame, it's going up, down, going in all sorts of directions. But you can't get caught up in that. If you get caught up and try to make a long-term call, you're probably more than like, I'm not going to say guaranteed because you could get lucky for years at a time, years on end until you realize you've been fucking up. But you're more than likely set to lose. Same with this physical realm. If you're stuck super subjective, has no semblance to any other objective piece of reality, it's not a sauce. But he said that this yoga pose allows me to achieve the divine bliss and everything will come to me. Well, like, here's a book of 8,000 yoga poses. That's not even in there, bro. Like, where do you get that from? It doesn't matter where you got that from. It says it before it becomes my truth. So what dictates something being your truth is now an authority figure giving you some information.
And an emotional attachment to that authority figure or that piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Not
then
even based
dictates
on results.
your perception of reality. But that's not how it is.
Bondage.
Mm-hmm.
So when we liberate ourselves from bondage, those type of illusions begin to fade because you can see past them, right? So we talk about Prakriti, we talk about nature. Nature has a tendency to express itself as a form, as a shape, as a pattern. Because the transient nature of form, shape, and pattern, it remains perpetually in a state of imbalance. So manifest Prakriti is always imbalanced, right? Because of this constant imbalance, we can never find peace within matter. You're not going to find peace within matter because of that.
In The Last Jedi, so one of the characters, the bad guy, Kylo Ren, he confronts his big bad, Snoke. That was in referencing the last movie. You lost the fight to a girl who doesn't really fight because you were unbalanced. You could use this dark side, but you got to be balanced. And something else that you said, you were like, we're trying to identify with matter and these these subjective things, but we're always going to get blown over by the objective. And another movie which showed this very much was I forget the second Spider-Man movie where he goes to Europe, Far From Home, and he's fighting Mysterio. The first time he fights Mysterio, he gets his ass kicked because he's relying on his 5 senses. The only way he's able to even overcome it is the quote-unquote 6th sense. You could take it literally, you could not, whatever, but it's trying to illustrate the point of this meat suit isn't it. It's not, it doesn't have it. What happened to your meat suit? Sorry, it's not godly. and it's not going to help you. It's not going to move. It doesn't have a potential to move a mountain, then it's probably not it.
I mean, even in simpler terms, if it's not permanent, then it's not real. There's nothing you can really base anything off of, except that it's not going to last.
But God said, "My soul is eternal, and my soul is me."
What
So
part
this
of
is this is real.
Right? What part of
what
you?
part of me? What is even me? Are we talking about the meat suit that is influenced by the sexual urge, which just comes from the body itself trying to reproduce? That's not original. That comes with the flesh, with the animal. Your desire to eat, your desire to accumulate and hoard things.
Mm-hmm.
None of that stuff is original.
It's another form of fear. It's really peasantry mindset. Where people say, "Oh, better to have something and not need it than to need it and not have it." That's
Well,
literally.
look at the dragon legacy. That peasant mindset is equivalent to animal mindset because they consider the peasants no different from the animals.
Well, let me hoard all, or
Even that you posted a story. I have a family member who does that as well. Like when you have emotional baggage, you can see the reflection. Largely, it stems from stuff, worthless stuff, the accumulation of worthless stuff. But then that justification will come out.
it's better to have it and not need it.
But like, what type of mindset are you working with? That's still, I hate to use the terms lack and abundance mindset, but that's literally a lack mindset. You think you're about to lose something, so you're hoarding everything. There's no discernment in that.
Right. Automatic, instinct, animal. You don't think it through. You allow that automatic autopilot sense to take over your decision-making process.
When my other dog was alive, she used to steal my boy dog's treats. So she would, like, if he wasn't looking, she would just steal it. So he started developing the habit of, and he still does, even though she's dead, he still does this. Give him a treat. He'll walk over to somewhere like a corner and then like drop it, come back for another treat, get it, and then walk to the other corner and drop it. So he'll just be in a corner of like 10 treats and he won't eat them.
Oh, he's now in a survival mindset.
And it's even, you have to analyze those initial traumatic situations. If someone stole something from you and you got to hoard your stuff, what were you doing to mess up that bad? I know someone who almost got a truck stolen because it was in their front yard. Kind of a classic, old school classic truck. But it's just there, and it's there every single day. And that person has avoided getting a security system to be cheap for some reason, and also avoided covering the car or parking it in the garage when there's space. So it's basically you dangling some meat outside and I'm mad that your hand got bit. That something actually bit your hand one day.
But it shows you too exactly where their priorities come in when it comes to external influences and how they identify with the matter, right? They're identifying with the truck, but they're not taking any type of precautions to protect it or anything like that. But as almost like when I see that kind of behavior, I see it almost as like a form of rebellion. They feel like, oh, I'll get the object, but I'll be damned if I pay someone to make sure that it's secure, or I'm not going to play those regular rules here. It's like, okay, well, guess what you open yourself up to? Other people and other influences that don't play by the regular rules as well, which includes thievery.
Regular rules, that's their subjective rules. And taking it a step deeper, why do you even want that object? Right. What do you think that object brings you? The person has other cars, but they got the truck.
Right. And you gotta wonder too, like if they want that car, maybe there's if they have that car, but there's no security system or anything like that, and it could be stolen, is there some type of glorification that they feel if it is stolen? Like, are they setting themselves up for that as part of their storyline? I have such nice stuff that people can't keep their hands off of it.
Yeah.
That makes me valuable.
That's a good point. Because we said, I mean, not so much at this stage, but it'll still happen. Like you said, it has to go along with the story, or has to go along with the narrative. And on a mass scale too. There was a mass shooting incident here, Orange County, like 30 minutes away. But it received so little national attention because the ethnic groups involved, it was like the same, it was like that same ethnic group on its own people.
Yeah.
But compared to that shooting last week where there's the white guy who killed black people, it received this much attention. But that goes to show you narrative, story.
Yep.
You want to see a racist America, you got it.
That's right. That happened in
with every-
Delaware all the time. Where I grew up,
And when-
Delaware was like fucking horrible. But like none of that stuff was even on the news. But like there was a murder in my front yard, like my apartment complex, you know? And then like not even a couple months later, across the street at the park, nothing was ever discovered. Nothing was, you know, it was all chalked up to, oh, they're just stupid kids. But when you have a narrative fitting in the news, right? If it fits that narrative that they're putting out, then and that's the thing too, right? We have to stop. I have to stop myself from using like they, because I don't know like specific names or something like that. But really, it's just the narrative. It's the story. It's a storyline. There's tons of clickbait out there, right? And that's media. That's news. That's all this kind of shit. That's matter. Matter is clickbait.
We could make it more finite. That's also us. We say, I'm unlucky. I forgot which book it was, but they did an experiment where there's 3 types of people they have walking into a bar. Person who consider themselves lucky, the neutral person, and then the unlucky person, which 48 Laws of Power says stay away from unlucky people. Here's why. So these 3 groups get sent, 3 groups of 3, 9 people in total, get sent into the bar. The people who say they're lucky find this planted money on the floor. They're like, oh man, here we go. People who are neutral, I think 2 of them saw it, 1 of them didn't. And then the group that was considered themselves unlucky didn't have a clue at all. And it was the same spot each time. But that goes to show you if we, I'm this, I'm that, we limit ourselves negatively, or limit ourselves at all, but we're going to start with the negative stuff, or the unproductive stuff. That's all we're going to see. That's all that's ever going to be backed up. Someone can hand you the keys, the literal keys. I'll take you under my wing. I'll train you. You'll learn X, Y, and Z. These are your goals. No, but my parents say you got to do this. You'll be stuck. And then we start to expand. We got to start redefining the neutral stuff. I talked to someone, I want to drop game, but I'm like, he's like, oh, just tell me. I'm like, I can't tell you because you have to break your own beliefs. And then we got to masculine and feminine, cause and effect. And I started breaking it down that way. You're saying, what about masculine being strong and financially something, like his definition of it, and like definition that he thinks he hears when he listens to certain stuff. I'm like, see, this is why I can't give you the whole sauce, because you have to redefine the neutral stuff. Right. And later, the last various stages, or the last and very final stage, is to reframe the quote unquote positive stuff. There's a lot of stuff that helps your ego. Really, I really think kindness has probably killed more people than all wars combined. You'll start to like kindness and things that boost that solidify your identification as this thing is probably the final test, I'd say. But even that stuff has to be transcended. First start with the stuff. Oh, I can't do that. Why? Well, I just can't. You got to start exploring it. No more of those answers.
Yeah, I experimented with that, or I've been experimenting with that by changing up the archetypes, because what makes up our personalities are mixtures of archetypes of different of references and impressions that we get from different people in our lives, or even from other stories that we read. So, as we talked about in an episode previously, right? You could be playing out a storyline of Robin Hood. If as a kid you identify with Robin Hood, you might always have an issue with bosses and feeling like you need to save someone in that, right? Because you might be identifying with an archetype that you read when you were a kid. So when you start getting those more subtle levels of the personality that you've developed, you can start changing up the archetypes. So I started fucking with that. Okay, I'm a lucky person archetype. And first, what I found was that there is a lot of people who will try to keep you limited, who try to make your personality fit the one that they have fit themselves into. So they're going to try anything they can to squish you into that same mesh that they're in order to identify with you. Because if you're something different from what they've been identifying with, then that forces them to change. And they don't want to have to do that. So they want to live their truth. So when I went outside of that, right, and started becoming the lucky person, that's when I realized, okay, fuck the 9 to 5. I'm going to be my own business owner, right? I quit my job. Now, I had set things up in motion because I was always working towards that, always. Because the other thing about understanding gunas, right, is that you can have an idea, but if you don't follow it up with action, it becomes tamasic. It just stays stagnant. It's not sattvic anymore.
It'll hold you back.
Right.
Oh, one day I'm gonna be a billionaire. You just wait. 20 years later, what happened? Oh, man, I got caught up, had to pay my bills and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Just
So
follow through, people. Follow through. Get some. Get
right.
Game.
Yeah, read and set yourself up. And then I also stopped relying on the 9. I also had a big realization that 9 to 5 was never going to give me the wealth I needed. What I needed was my time. So I quit, right? Now I'm on call. So I work only 1 day a week. And that's because other things have kind of backed up. But as soon as I did that, there was a delay that happened in the license that I need in order to become my own official professional, right? And all these other limitations came up. But along with that, because I continued seeing myself as a lucky person and filled my mindset with the archetypes of those who were able to surpass all difficulties, because there was always opportunity for abundance has come in voluntarily, as if it was already a part of my nature. And I'm not struggling at all. Like there is no issue. Things are harmonious. And only because I walked into that blank space but I saw it as there was only opportunity. And therefore, that's all I see, regardless of any hindrances that come up. I went back to work my 1 day with my coworker, and they say, oh, I'm saving up my money. They're working 2 jobs full-time, trying to save up money to become a full-time stock trader. But while we're at work, right? While we're trying to, I'm setting up, I'm doing stuff for my business in any type of free time that I have, plus the things that I love to do. What is he doing? Instagram, TikTok, clickbait, matter.
You can even use those tools to change pretty much your intake of your personal demiurge. A lot of times it would be,
I'm going on a social media, I'm going off of social media, guys, for 12 weeks. Just contact me by my number. Or you can just unfollow all the bullshit and start following, your role model. Start following pages that boost business advice or whatnot. Something very funny happened recently regarding, I forgot what you said that brought it up, but my friend went over to his friend's apartment, and his friend was like, "Yeah, man, I'll do whatever it takes to get the bag, blah blah blah." And then like crumpled up underneath the couch, this smushed up book was Trump's Art of the Deal. And he's like, "Bro, like this is the most legendary book ever." Oh man, fuck Trump. I don't want to read that shit.
Ah.
When you have it, that goes back. When you have it, how do you know you have it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get the bag. You could have been had it. That is probably the Bible of the 21st century, talking about some business. My friend got that book for free because the dude didn't want it.
Even as Swami Vivekananda says, we can buy and own all the books in the library, but we're only able to read what our karma enables us to deserve that we're able to read.
Right. Right. That's where that action comes in. That's where that focus is.
Yeah.
You get clear on what you want, but you also get clear on your future self, who you want to be, because you are always changing. Your perspective is always changing. I think that's another thing too, that when getting into this study, people have fear about is the actual self-realization. You are not going to be the same person that you were. You never were. You were never even this. Like, this is a meat suit. This isn't even all of you. Yeah, you want to preserve it so you can in my opinion, I want to conserve this capsule as best I can, because I want to be able to learn as much as I can during this lifetime, to be able to have as many years as I can with studying self-realization and getting closer to that. But I mean, as far as living within a certain role, I think there's a lot of us who think that once we have a role, we have to fulfill it. That's the key. Like, I'm even open now to the point where Samkhya is beautiful, and I'm glad that we're learning this. And it's a huge stepping point that has changed my life direction. But maybe there's something more. Just gotta continue pushing. Forms change. Shit changes. This is not how it appears. Nothing is how it appears. As long as you can move along with that, that's when you can start releasing your desires for staying the same.
Move along with it or move beyond it.
Yeah.
I like that you brought up the role stuff, because that's kind of the theme of The Last Jedi. Like, joy and meat is your destiny. You try to go along with, either try to avoid something and end up what we were trying to avoid at, and or hop in like, oh, I was raised to, or class exam, I'm a black man, I want to be a successful black lawyer. I've heard it a lot, ain't seen it yet. But I've also seen, well, let's say other stuff, like when it comes to businesses and black business, blah, blah, blah. They move along with that role, but they literally unconsciously take on all the stereotypes. There's a joke, at my last job, there was a joke we made about black businesses, how they'll always be late, like the owner will always be late, and then something will always be messed up with the order. And every black business that we tried literally attracted that. I've met people who started their own stuff. They literally adapted that so unconsciously. They got the surface level what they wanted. They got the general statement, but didn't define out all the details. Is this what like kind of made Kevin Samuels' his form of interrogation, I guess, so important? At the beginning, he would ask name, age, weight, dress size. You want a man that does this, 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 and this, and it's sorting out all the costs, getting specific. And a lot of these women would be like, I never thought of that, because you could get what you say you want, but you never know all the I guess the unconscious aspects of that goal. Say if your goal is to buy a house and that's all you want to do, you just want to buy a house and live in the house, buy a house, and then guess what? Mortgage, bills, the house may be run down. There's a whole level of a karma and attachment about that house alone that you just inherited. But you would have never thought about that. Just I need to buy a house.
Whole lot of karma that was not foreseen. Automatic patterns. Bondage. Nature is constantly expressing an imbalance. This is why we have the shifting and the shaping of all the patterns day after day after day. Because of this consistent imbalance, again, we never find peace inside of matter. So all forms of life display various levels of this bondage. In the mineral kingdom, Purusha is the most bound, or at least appears to be the most bound. There's no self-awareness in the mineral kingdom. Rocks don't have an awareness of themselves. Just like in the plant kingdom, consciousness is a little bit less bound. Plants at least know to reach towards the sun, to reach towards water, right? In the higher forms of life, like humans, we have the potential for liberation. It doesn't just come because you're a human, right? Oh, I am all things. Yeah, the potential is there. All of life represents various levels of bondage to matter. So in the manifest world, we see these different levels from the most inert and dense to the most advanced. But what you won't see in this manifest dimension is an example of complete freedom. That's the one thing that we don't see in the manifest dimension. So again, we don't find liberation or soul inside of matter. We have to find that in an awareness that transcends matter. So let's talk about these three ropes, these three gunas that create prakriti. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva means essence. That's what it literally kind of translates to, essence. Sat, Chidananda, Sattva. Sattva expresses everything that is balanced, everything that is harmonious, everything that's pure. It represents victory over every form of imperfection. Sattva is the most present in consciousness, and it exemplifies the ability to discriminate, right? So a sattvic mindset, a sattvic personality is well versed in discrimination because you can see clearly, right? We talk about Rajas. Rajas is driven into activity. It's driven into change. Rajas has to fight to keep its place in existence, right? It has to fight because of all the attachments to all the previous actions, et cetera, et cetera. Rajas has the characteristic of discernment. It's because of Rajas we can discern between this and that. Now, Tamas is darkness, and it opposes all activity. So we'll see Rajas and Tamas are actually in opposition to each other. Tamas maintains inertia, and it obscures the true perception. It represents the inability to discern or to discriminate. So if we want to look at these three gunas, as far as even levels of manifestation, we can see Tamas as being seen as the world of dense matter, the mineral world, right? The mineral kingdom, mountains, rocks, and trees, and all that stuff. Rajas can be seen as a realm of activity and life. So we got the animal kingdom, the insect kingdom, the human kingdom, all these beings struggling for survival. We gotta survive, us versus them. This is the Rajasic world. The Sattvic world, the Sattvic guna can be seen as the heavenly world, right? The world of clarity and intelligence, and that which we aspire to in this spiritual path. So one thing to remember is it's not like either or, right? One thing to remember about the gunas is that Prakriti is made of all three at all times, just in different degrees. The gunas are never apart. There's always going to be a tamasic aspect. There's always going to be a sattvic. There's always going to be a rajasic aspect. They're present in everything. They support and they cooperate each other in different percentages. All of manifest reality owes its existence to the imbalance of the gunas.
Can't find it currently, but there's, or at least I can't find it in my head, of course. But there's 3 skills that a manager has, depending on the level. If they're your regular supervisor over a team, then they're going to have a lot more technical knowledge than, say, the person who's in charge of those supervisors, and definitely the person who's in charge of the managers, in charge of supervisors. People who are in charge of managers have more soft skills, have more general knowledge. Like, they're not concerned with the numbers. Like, if they're a regional manager or regional person in charge of Walmart, they're not in control of all the receipts, all the logistics for all those Walmarts. They're more big picture and goal oriented. And I brought that up because there was 3 specific types of knowledge. There was technical, there was 2 other more that I can't remember. But even in that system, you'll see these 3 forms of knowledge. They exist at each level, but literally in different degrees. Like I said, the final one has a lot more technical knowledge than the rest. It's, to me, at least, a reflection of.
Yeah, and we could even see that as life in these different worlds, according to Kabbalah, right? The lower life forms, extremely basic: eat, feed, mate, feed, kill, repeat. Whereas on the higher planes, we're dealing with something that's a little bit more complex, because the amount of data that we're dealing with is so vast. It goes even beyond having an incarnated body. You know, I'm talking about, you know, like the angelic realm, the archangelic realm, the God form realm, the archetypal realm, things like that. We could see those as the CEOs of, or the COOs of existence.
Precisely.
So if we were to apply the gunas as far as how, you know, like with the 4 worlds or how manifestation happens, we could see that sattva can represent the purpose or the idea of the form to be realized, right? Now, underneath that, we can see rajas as representing the power and the practical work needed to implement the form. And then finally, we can see tamas as any obstacle or matter in front of the work that needs to take place, right? So tamas has to be overcome. Tamas is that heavy, solid rock that must be moved by rajas in order for us to meet the sattvic aspect, which is the goal and the purpose.
Reframe. One thing that is tremendous is that the Durga Sloki. That one's been hidden mainly because it's, the way I see it is like you fighting fire with fire. So if you have a tamasic tendency, now you're getting a sattvic expression of tamas and implementing that into your life. So it's gonna kick you into action. It's gonna jumpstart you. And that just goes to show, like, again, there's different degrees to that expression. That was a sattvic expression of tamas. There's also a rajasic expression of tamas. There's also a tamasic expression of tamas.
Yeah. There's a tamasic expression of sattva.
Mm-hmm.
They're all together. They're all together. A good abstract way of realizing that is studying the 25 tattvas. There's going to be different degrees of each element within each element. It's percentage based. It's not one or the other. There's an akasha of earth. There's a tejas or agni of water, right? There's a fiery aspect of water. There's an airy aspect of, you know, they all are intermingled in some different degree, just like the 3 gunas. Everything in the universe.
The complication of matter. Something I started to see with the whole gender and sexuality thing of this century is really a further complication of matter, like how we see the tattvas get further, more complex. And also in Kabbalah, once we move towards the underside of Tiferet, then everything starts to get jumbled up.
Right.
What happens is people identify with this jumbled up mess instead of, like, we're identifying with the different parts sewn together as a whole. Whereas in Kether, it's all parts as a whole, but it's like it's working. It's like a nice manufactured car versus someone built this car from scratch with any old pieces that they could find.
Yeah.
We're sitting there identifying, like, we're looking at the one that's built together, like, yo, that is luxury.
Things start to get very seemingly jumbled under Tifereth. In truth, there's order to it. But that's a good point. You know, we'll see the hermaphrodite on the feminine pillar, right? We see the female Venus on the masculine pillar. What's going on, right? We're talking about expression of energy. And while these impulses are coming through the collective unconscious right now, because most people are dense, because most people are attached to matter, they're misinterpreting what they're receiving. So it's becoming this big thing that it's not even, we'll have to get through this whole, whatever's going on right now in the world. We got to get through all that before the pure expression of what's trying to come through can come through. But this ain't it right now. It's a sign that something divine is coming through, but because that divine is being channeled through basic ass humans, it doesn't look very divine. It looks confused. But if we allow it to continue, it will sort itself out. We'll just need more people who understand and less people who don't.
The image of kind of, there, you know, different levels of people almost standing on top of each other like a leaning tower of Pisa style. At the same time, this influence is trying to come down.
Yeah.
So that stuff already made it past the Hesed level, or this Hesed archetypes. Now the stuff's working its way down. But at the same time, this entire thing is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, there will be a meeting place between this pure expression and everyone, but it ain't now.
Right. Can't judge it by what we see right now. Please don't. But as right now, it's making itself manifest in the physical. Eventually, it's going to make itself manifest in the mental. That's when we'll start having clarity of what's going on. But the human race as a whole right now is a bit too dense to clearly reflect what soul is trying to, be perceived as.
Hey, is this the apocalypse? Could this be what the apocalypse is actually? Instead of a world-ending event, maybe it's just our interpretation of the world that's gonna end.
But what does apocalypse mean? What's that word translate to?
Revelation.
Revelation.
Something that I learned recently was he's now a historical figure, Henry Kissinger. A lot of the stuff with Nixon's term and Cold War policy had Kissinger's name on it. Like, he's front and center every major crisis. And he just did an interview. I didn't know he's still alive, but he was doing an interview very recently. People were trying to ask him about Russia, China, the economy. He said, look, the shit I went through is not even relevant anymore. Like, that 1900 to 1999, that's a whole different system. Right now, it's entirely different. You can't look at new stuff with the stuff I went through. I don't even know what's going on. This is beyond me.
It's beyond me, bucko.
And if he's saying that, I don't care what anybody has to say. That man was one of the top Hesed archetypal people, I would say, in human history. He's saying that old shit does not work. Stop using the old shit. Either look at what's eternal or go along with the flow.
Yeah.
We can, if you're still talking about world peace, curing world hunger, that if it didn't start in the year 2000, drop it. Equality, drop it. I'm sorry. I hate to say it. Drop it.
Flip off. Shells.
Mm-hmm. Bird still doesn't go out of his nest. It's still attached to that egg. That's nasty. It's decomposing and it's just holding on.
Putrid. And that is also an alchemical stage,
Mhm.
but that stage comes with its own expression, right? It's not lording over matter. It is submitted to matter until what is putrefied is cast off and what remains can ascend like the phoenix. Sattva can represent the purpose or the idea of the form to be realized. Rajas represents the action and the practical work needed to implement it. And that's the fire element right there. Sattva is the Akasha element. Rajas is the fire element. Tamas is the earth element. Tamas is any obstacle or any aspect of matter that needs to be overcome, right? You're a sculptor and you got this big ass block of marble. Now the sattvic aspect is you seeing that beautiful sculpture. The rajasic aspect is you having to do the work to chisel it away. The tamasic aspect is the rock itself. It exists in its akashic form. It will eternally exist there, but you have to do the work to make it manifested in this physical dimension. So everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose that it needs to realize, that it's seeking to realize. That's the sattvic aspect of everything, right? Everything has a certain work needed to be done to realize its purpose. That's the rajasic aspect. Do the work. That's the rajasic aspect. And the work is related to its obstacles and its opposition that must be overcome and refined. That's the tamasic aspect.
Ooh.
Tamas and rajas are ignorance and passion. The sattvic state is liberation from ignorance and passion.
We could take that to the hero's journey, how we have, in our modern media, we have plot-driven stories and we have character-driven stories. A lot of what we see is plot-driven stories, but a character-driven story, the person literally has to let go of a tamasic belief, a limiting belief, in order to overcome the obstacle. They're saying, "Oh man, I can't fight that guy," but in the moment in the movie, they're okay. I have to drop it. They'll maybe get some flashbacks or something, some advice, and then they overcome the obstacle. Same thing with us. I like how you said it's in relation to these obstacles, because these obstacles are the external representations of our unconscious beliefs. They're so dense because we didn't get rid of them in the first place. So now there is no choice but for us to confront these things.
No choice but to confront these things. And this is the process that spirit takes from Kether to Malkuth, right? Malkuth represents that hard, seemingly dead, inert state of matter. And Kether represents what it could be, what it has always been, the potential. The Rajasic aspect is everything up underneath that supernal triad, going from Gibra to Chesed to Tiferet to Hod to Netzach to Yesod. That's all Rajasic. That's all movement. And that's all what's shaping and changing and shifting Malkuth. But understand, Malkuth is no less divine than Kether, because within Malkuth is the original cause and effect that is existent in Kether. Meaning everything on the physical plane has a purpose, has a destination. It has always had purpose and destination. Right now, we're only seeing it through time and through space. But understand, this is not you. This is not what soul is. We're experiencing matter. We're experiencing nature. But what soul is beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond time, beyond space. And it's going to take a different angle to perceive that. You're not going to be able to perceive soul from being attached and identified with some idea of yourself or what you see in the mirror. It's got to be something deeper and something bigger than that. You'll see it one day. I'll see it one day. And again, it's not just like this or that. Just like the tree of life, everything happens in stages and degrees, right? We think of enlightenment as like suddenly a light bulb turns on. Well, you reach different levels of enlightenment every time you have a realization. It happens in degrees and layers. You're more enlightened today than you were a year ago. for some of us, more enlightened than we were last week, depending on your rate of acceleration. And if you're studying Samkhya, I'm just saying. I'm not talking about the same shit I was talking about last month, 2 months ago. Because the more that you understand, you start to work from a different angle. It just happens. The Bible says when I was a child, I did childish things. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. It's a natural process. In the book, I believe it was Gyan Yoga. It was Karma and Karma Yoga, I believe, where he talked about, what was it? Where you do away with, where you leave it alone, like the celibacy. What's that word called? Brahmacharya. Yeah. It's not just like giving up and abstaining. Oh, I'm no longer doing this anymore. No, it's that you've reached a new level of understanding that you don't do that stuff anymore just because it doesn't fit the paradigm anymore.
You release the desire for it.
You release the desire for it by understanding from a wider perspective. Most of the actions that we do come from the autopilot, automatic, animal instinct level. That's not thought. That's not free will. That's literally coming from the matter that composes your body. The urge to go out and try to find someone to have sex with. That literally comes from the karma that your body is bound to.
Mm-hmm. Like, do you ever notice if something in your external environment is happening, thoughts all of a sudden appear more quickly and impulsively? That's a natural karma that happens. When experience your external happens, you're going to automatically think more. There's going to be more thoughts that are going to be popping up in your head. They get stimulated off of each other, whether you have control over that or not. It's a natural karma of those things.
Natural.
You meaning I'm not manifesting because I have divine powers as a star seed?
You know, what do those words mean? We throw around words without really like understanding anything about them. Like starseed feels good to say, doesn't it? I'm a starseed. Doesn't that feel good to say? But what does that mean? What does it mean? Oh, well, it means that my soul comes from another planet. How do you know that? Who told you that? And what does that mean? Your soul comes from another planet. Yeah.
Define the word planet.
Where do you get your definition of soul from?
Yeah.
Are you talking about something that comes out of the material plane? Your soul came from another planet? That in itself don't even make sense. The soul does not originate in matter.
Oh, bro, you know what that means? They're a walking tulpa. Why? Because elements are of the physical plane. They're identifying with physical matter. They think their soul came from physical matter.
Yikes.
It's a walking elemental.
Yikes. That's why I said elementals are not just these creatures. Most people are elementals as well because they choose that. And that is why people are so bound to karma, because they choose that. They don't recognize something that exists beyond matter.
We're from the start. There's like 4 temperaments. We came from the earth. We came out of the ocean. Man made man through its ideas, and then we came from the stars. Those are just different degrees of the elements. How to show someone's temperament. What elemental they are.
Elemental. I'm just expressing my truth. I'm just living my truth. Well, you might want to change that word truth, because that don't sound like a truth. It sounds like an opinion, which is by nature, by default, false. Because it's an interpretation. And it's based on limited data. How can you make truth out of limited data? It's better to learn how to be comfortable with not knowing all the answers yet. You know, that's hard for people to do. to be comfortable not knowing all the answers. It's so uncomfortable to not know that we'll literally make something up and just cling to it because that makes us feel better.
Goes to show how out of control we are.
Out of
Or we could
control.
have a comprehensive model of the world that gives us a good amount of answers. Like each piece of our framework is open enough to answer that question in those varying degrees.
Hence the current study.
On the lower level, we have the Wheel of Fortune, the Orphic Path, not knowing all the answers, but still trusting. And then we get to the higher level of the Hierophant, where he has the framework and has mastered it. But notice that path is still not Kether, still not the ultimate sauce.
Still in the beginning.
Triple OG Sivananda said, this path is not for the weak. That doesn't mean physically weak. That means structurally weak. There's things that you have to be okay with not knowing, and you still have to move forward. That takes a level of strength to continue pressing forward, even if you don't have all the answers. Because that's when you realize it's not about the answers. It's about your level of awareness, your angle that you're approaching this thing from, right? I don't approach this from a limited human angle. I approach this from an angle that it's a stretch of the mind. I understand that what I actually am is something that I haven't yet come to a definition of. I accept that. I don't sit here and try to rack my brain and try to put a label on what I am. When you do that, you limit yourself by default.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I am yet, and I don't need to right now.
Sivananda and the whole Bihar group really, or the sannyasa orders have the inclination to give up that aspect of control, to literally give up knowing. Their whole lives are lived without the knowing. That's like the Star Wars character Chirrut Imwe from Rogue One. I sent that one to you, Trav. The dude that I'm one with the Force is with me.
Yeah.
Man's blind, but can still accomplish the objective by trusting in the quote unquote Force.
What's the Bible say? We walk by faith, not by sight. That's a powerful verse right there. Walking by faith, not by sight. We lean not unto your own understanding. Trust the Lord thy God with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. It takes strength to understand what that's talking about. To trust an aspect of life that is not dependent on what your five senses have picked up. I am one with the Force. I mean, that was one of the Mahavakyas, wasn't it?
Yep.
I am Brahman. No, I am the higher consciousness. You are that. Brahman is the higher consciousness. Brahman is knowledge and understanding. That's the complete package right there. Meditate on that. You got it.
Beyond those two, even the closest we could get to them is knowledge and understanding.
Knowledge, which is the data, and understanding, which is the synthesis of that data. See, knowledge is to see these words and repeat them. Understanding is to be able to know what it's talking about, to know it.
So I got a question about, you said Brahman or Brahma?
Brahman with an N.
Okay. Because I think that can be mistaken too, because Brahma is Prakriti still.
Mm-hmm.
That's a state that evokes or that evolves and is responsible for evolution. Brahman is a different state.
Absolutely. And that's something that I recently learned, because I didn't know that there were two different things. But Yeah, Nuru pointed it out in the chat because I was saying them interchangeably because I didn't know. But now I understand Brahma represents an aspect of the Trinity, the creator. And like you said, that's an aspect of Prakriti. Brahman is something that extends creation. It includes Purusha. So it's the synthesis of both. It is knowledge and understanding. Knowledge is Prakriti, understanding is Purusha. Knowledge is the data.
Yeah. Which is what? Another state of consciousness, another state of self-realization. It's not a being. It's not a place.
You're saying it's not the soul of the black man?
Not melanin. These are just words. Like, yeah, there's a physiological, there's a physical melanin. Yeah. And there's a few different categories of physical melanin. But see, where people get confused with all this YouTube stuff, with this YouTube scholarship, is that people interchange the word for physical melanin and this abstract principle of the unconscious mind as melanin. So now we start getting into the superiority complex because you think that a part of your physical body represents something that's not physical.
Right.
Make it make sense. It feels good, right? To feel like, yeah, I'm better than someone else. It feels good, but you cannot base your value on being better than someone else. That's immature.
Well, it's bound. It's limited. It's inconsistent. It's not permanent.
The seed of that is lack. The seed of needing to define yourself as better than someone else, off rip, the seed is going to make the fruit. That's lack.
Mm-hmm. Also, it's dense. Like, it's very dense. It's not it's based. It has so many limitations to it because it's based off of your current incarnation and identity an identity that is basically saying that you're a starseed. It's pretty much the equivalent to that. Your soul is attached to matter.
Right. And that right there just negates the whole thing. Yeah. And like I said, yeah, there's a physical melanin and there's a study of physical melanin. I'm not saying that's not true. Yes, it's true. And yes, it does have functions in the physical body. But the subject matter that we discuss here, at least on this channel, I don't know about other people's channels, but we're talking about something that is not physical, something that is metaphysical. What does meta mean?
Superior or above.
Non-visible and beyond.
That's right. Greetings, Hecate.
Hi.
So if it's beyond the physical, it's not physical. You cannot put a label on it. You can't point to it and say, this is it. This right here. We found the soul. It's in the skin. Really? But I digress because the people who I'm talking to are not going to believe it out of my lips. So I'm wasting my breath.
All right. Whoever wants to make money, I'm about to give an idea. You make a regular suntan lotion, market it towards, say it's only for melanated people, and put the whole spiritual soup on top of it.
Melanated. It'll have natural oils in it, right? Jojoba, almond oil, shea butter,
oil, Florida water, sage oil.
And as a bundle, right? Because we got to do a bundle upsell. We have a yoni steam with the same ingredients. I bash on that yoni steam a bit too hard. Nothing wrong with a yoni steam. You want to have a nicely steamed yoni. It's healthy.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. I haven't done my research into that.
But it's physical. It's physical. Roly, 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 roly. Dab a ranch. I already got some designer to hold up my pants. I just want some ice on my wrist so I look better when I dance. Have you looking at it, put you in a trance?
All the manifest objects that are perceived produce feelings of pleasure, aversion, or indifference. But who is it that recognizes these feelings, which are derived from the different manifest forms? Prakriti cannot recognize the nature of its creation because Prakriti itself is insentient. So the cognizer of the feelings, which emanate from the interaction with different objects in creation, is known as Purusha. Purusha exists as the seer, not only as a passive cognizer, but as an alert cognizer of everything that takes place in the realm of Prakriti. The seer or Bhokta of the various effects cannot be Prakriti. The concept of Bhokta was discussed in relation to Sanghat Paratattvat. So all the manifest objects are perceived to produce feelings of pleasure, aversion, or indifference. So all these feelings that you feel, right, all this kind of stuff, all these experiences are still expressions of Prakriti. What you identify with, your very identity, is an expression of Prakriti. But it's so Purusha can recognize itself beyond that.
Look at
I
those
think
three things that you said: pleasure, aversion, and indifference. Those are expressions of the gunas inside the mind. Pleasure is sattva, aversion is rajas, indifference is tamas.
How can you think about creating a life or of an evolution if you're still stuck on the feelings, if you're still stuck on an expression of Prakriti?
Stuck. World, what a world. Have you been?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was reading ahead that the fifth quality called on to establish Purusha is Kaivalya, which means aloneness, freedom, or liberation. This is a dharmic concept because the effects of Prakriti, which are composed of the three gunas, and their side effects, attraction, repulsion, and indifference, are considered to be the cause of bondage. Purusha cannot be liberated from the clutches of Prakriti by continuously enjoying the play of life. However, there comes a time when the consciousness turns away from the experiences of the world. If you watch the same film over and over again, absorbing each and every scene, finally a time will come when you turn away and stop watching it. This is where that true evolution comes in, where I think that you were discussing earlier, where you were saying when you really change your framework, the same stories don't entertain you anymore.
Mhm.
The same things you used to do don't entertain you anymore. So if you're still token on the same story, you might still have to rock it with that same story for a couple of lifetimes before you get tired of it. That's why we really also can't hate anybody for having a specific way about living their life. If they don't want to change their framework, it's because they're still watching the same movie.
And they're comfortable with it. Nicely.
Right. Right. So that's where managing your emotions comes in. That's where those are pretty clear indicators, right? We talk about, we just talked about how it's a part of Prakriti and how you have to separate yourself from identifying with the emotions and instead becoming the observer of the emotions and of the thoughts, because those are just expressions off of the original impulse that was sent out.
Yes. The more we start to study the intricate details of Prakriti, which is nature, which is our manifested reality, the more that we start to study those details, the more these concepts start to make sense. We're told things in the beginning of this science, and we're just expected to accept them, such as attachment causes suffering, desire causes suffering, right? And you have to go into meditation and practice non-attachment, right? We don't quite know the intricacies of what those mean until we really dig deep. Attachment causes suffering. What does that mean? Well, the soul is permanent and it doesn't move. But when that soul begins to identify with change, with Prakriti, which is eternal change, yes, it's going to be painful. Because while you want to cling to this idea, it's already begun the process of change. And that's eternal. So here's the thing. I am no longer looking to not reincarnate here anymore, because now I understand this matter will always incarnate because it belongs here. This matter will never leave. There's a part of me that was not here in the first place. The more that I identify with that, the more that I'm going to find what I'm actually seeking, which is liberation from bondage to this matter.
Mm-hmm. Right, because even you saying that you want to escape from it, that's a desire.
Right. And there's no escaping. You can't escape. We're never here.
Right. That's where recognition comes in. There's a difference.
We attach to this body and we bring to ourselves the consequence of that attachment. We bring it to us, just like I said before about the astrology thing. Astrology is the story of the evolution of matter through time. That's all it is. It's nothing like magically, mystically, oh my God, I don't understand astrology. How did the horoscope know what I was going to do? It's not talking about you. It's talking about your body and the things that your body's made of. Mm-hmm. But you want to attach to that, so you have it. You got it. That's what you want. And it's fun, isn't it? Yeah, I'm a Gemini, so that, you feel good when you talk to other people because you found something that describes you, right? That's you literally feeling good that you can identify with something. It's an addiction.
Oh, it's not spiritual.
It's not spiritual. Even astrology is not spiritual. How can you say that, Trav? Because astrology is the story of matter.
I used to be a drug addict and now I'm an astrologer.
Well, at least this one ain't gonna kill you as hard.
Yeah, it won't kill you. What I think is interesting too, right, is that when looking to astrology, you also find the archetypes that you're attracted to, which proves that even your personality is a makeup of Prakriti. It's a repeating cycle. You were never here, but your ego, your personality is repeating.
Right.
Repetition.
The magnet with the metal shavings around it, right? For some reason, you find it very useful and appropriate to continue to attract metal shavings. And then you get mad because all this collection of matter has got you so attracted to it. Mm-hmm. You're attracted to this lump of matter. That's why you're here. You're magnetized to it. and you complain because it hurts. Well, learn maybe why you're attracted to it. What are you so attracted to? Oh, if I could just have that threesome. Oh, if I could just become a millionaire. Oh, if I could just be that rapper, that rock star, that ball player, right? Why? Get to the root of it. Why do you have those desires in the first place? And here, if you're lucky, you'll find out, damn, when I was 3 years old, this happened to me. And that's why that desire is there. Now you can liberate from it. Now you can unattach from it. Shadow work. This is why shadow work is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody out there listening to me? Bobby Hemmett quote. Star Film says, so as the gunas can to some extent be correlated to the triangles on the tree and their ascension, the gunas get subtler, like our understanding of attachment. Right.
Here they appear subtle, yeah.
And that can be said about all of life, right? Towards the lower end of that tree, the expressions are very dense and very limited in their expression, right? I am this, and look at you, you're that. There's a distinction here, at least from this perspective. But the higher up we go in that tree, like say the etheric plane, the astral plane, there's a little bit of overlap, right? We talked about, I was telling my brother earlier today how my roommate's little dog chewed up my unicorn and all this cotton was splayed all over the floor. And it's very likely that the very same day, MC Maestro had this dream where he put that metal poker through his uncle and the cotton is just splayed over the floor, right? There's a certain overlap there. We're getting close to something, close to some type of origin point. The higher up we go on the tree, we're going to find that there's more and more of a connection. This life, no man is an island.
Right.
And again, this psychic ability and astral projection and all this stuff, it's not magical powers. Like it is life itself. That is how life is. But we're veiled from it because of the limitation, because of the identification with the physical thing. Nothing can teach you better than dream work and meditation.
Going into unity is like going into neutrality.
Unconditioned, right? Mm-hmm. Unconditioned consciousness.
What's that? Dream work is to make me talk.
What'd you say, Maestro?
I thought dream work was to make me talk with aliens. I didn't know about any of this consciousness stuff.
Talk with aliens.
Aliens are coming and get you.
I am an alien.
I'm living my truth. I'm a starseed.
I went to a tarot card reader when I was 15, and she told me that I was an alien. I'm a Pleiadian. I feel most attached to that.
And she said in order to balance my chakras, I needed to pay her $1,000 in cash.
And sleep with rose ports every night.
I had to buy those from her too.
I can do all of those for you for free. For free, people, for free.
And she said I had to let her sleep on my couch to burn off karma.
Mira says, re-becoming the timeless stillness and state of non-fluctuating bliss that we call Purusha or Brahman, which we have always been and can only be, is only about letting go of the masquerade of matter. The masquerade of matter. The masquerade. You cosplaying right now.
Sham.
But I'm
Bamboozle.
saying, your character. You're cosplaying.
You know? I switch between characters and people don't even realize it.
Oh,
Nothing is real.
oh, but Trav, you're saying I'm not just one person and my thoughts are mine, but I'm actually multiple people in different emotional states and contexts.
Right. I am multiple people in multiple states and contexts. And the deeper you come to understand that, the more you can play around with it and use it to your benefit. In some states, you pull down different information than you do in other states, right? In some states, you pull different information down than you do in other states. Are you in control of your states, or does matter dictate what state that you become at any given time? Do you let something else trigger you into who you are and what you become at any given moment? Or do you flip that switch and change those plugs whenever you see fit? They didn't hear it. They didn't hear it. They did not hear it. Money, 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 money. I am the higher consciousness. You are that. Brahman is the higher consciousness. Brahman is knowledge and understanding. Who is the person that you need to become in order to live the lifestyle that you want to live?
I need to become the level 50 demon lord. Can you do that for me, Trav? I'll pay you $500.
Yeah, I can do it for that price.
Hell yeah, I'll do it too. You can pay me and let me sleep on your couch.
And eat all my ramen noodles.
Yeah, I'll clean all your karmas. Make you the demon lord of 50,000 legions.
Hey,
Make
can I
you
be
King Time in himself.
Doctor Strange?
There you go. Yeah. Yep. We got Doctor Strange up in here too. We'll all hang out on the couch, man.
I want to be Dr. Strange Scarlet Witch. Dr. Scarlet Strange Witch. How about that? Fuse it all together, because there are gems and multiple perspectives. But if you can only see through one perspective, you're already limited.
Wait, Trav, there's more than one perspective? There's not just source energy?
There's not just dark side and light side, is there?
I'm a light worker.
I'm a shadow worker. You ever heard that one before?
Yeah.
Oh, we would not get along because we're on the opposite sides.
Just off that information, we've made a judgment, right? Oh, you're a shadow worker? I don't do so good with shadow work.
I work with the dark side. I don't know what you work with. Like, you work with like spirituality and all that. You know all the stuff you're saying about good intentions. Well, I'm not about that. I'm about the darkness.
I had a guy tell me, he was like, I feel like we should be friends, and I was like, okay. And then he was like, so are you into like magic and all of that? And I was like, blah, blah, sure. And then he found out that I had worked with the Goetia, and he goes, oh, now I understand why I was attracted to being your friend, but we never really got close. You see, I work with angels. I was like, you're right. This is why we never got close. Like, yeah. And then 2 months later, he hits me up and he goes, I bought a book on Goetia. Like,
Curiosity killed the cat.
good for you. Like, you have fun with that, Boo Bear. You have fun with that.
Boo Bear.
Oh, Boo Bear.
Elliot Rogers, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for that donation.
The curiosity killed the cat. That's what he did.
I know, right? He couldn't stay away.
Yeah.
You're like, Alora, I confess my heart to you. Please rule together by my side as the prince of the infernal throne.
Oh
Ugh.
shit. I love that one. The Inferno Room.
You gotta say it like that. You gotta say it like
Yes, I gotta
I'm
say
sorry,
it like that.
the infernal throne.
That's
The
right, man. Inferno Room. Inferno.
You gotta invoke those fires with the tongue.
That's right, man. You gotta make it more spooky and attractive. Inferno. Like Prakriti.
Prakriti and the inferno.
That's it, Travis.
This is my infernal form.
Oh man, I want to be like Trav now.
Me too.
Trav, I don't know why you were talking about all that yoga stuff. We need the old Trav back. We need this Trav.
Fine. The old Trav is back. We're done with the yoga stuff. Mission accomplished. I invoked what I needed to invoke. Now to the next level.
Oh, he said now to the next level and it froze. Oh, now he's back. Okay. You, I just realized you don't have your hood on. Your like little cape hood on.
Oh, she was catching the hints that I was dropping.
You know something? You're right. You're absolutely right. I didn't pay attention until you say it.
Dude, I only saw that when you became the demon lord. Then I was like, where is his hood? Oh my god. It's hair.
I had to pull out my Doctor Strange cloak again.
He's friendly
Excellent.
Trav today.
He's
He's
the
not
friendly.
he's not the Trav dropping gems every 5 seconds. He's trying to help us.
Right. I love
Oh, yeah, always fun times.
Okie doke. Well, took me a lot to summon myself, but now that I'm here, I need to pick back up on where I was going so that I can finish writing this damn book.
What? Okay. Veronica, we weren't really on a page. We were just moving along on like Prakriti and Purusha right now.
Okay. You were turning off. Got it.
And Purusha and Are we on?
Go ahead, Alora. I want to hear your question.
Just question. I just forgot what chapters we're actually supposed to be covering.
Today,
Yeah.
chapters 3, 4, 5 on Prakriti, the three gunas and Purusha.
Okay.
Why I was talking so much about Purusha and Prakriti.
Right. I got that. I didn't know if we were also incorporating chapter 6 or not.
Well, that's next.
Okay.
That itself is a whole level of understanding.
I know. All right, we're holding back.
One step at a time. I'm going fast for my advanced people, but for my slow people, that's where the repetition is coming from, right? We catch the slow people on the repetition, we catch the advanced people on the depth.
On the depth, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very cool to be looking at this information now after what, I guess like maybe like a year later.
I want to say January 2021, maybe.
Yeah.
A year later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so we're going to get into theory of manifestation, bondage and liberation. Maybe just two chapters. Maybe just two chapters. I don't know. We'll split it up. I'll see how it goes. But boy, oh boy, are we getting close to June, which means, yeah, I'm going to be standing on stage speaking to all you wonderful folks who are going to be there. But also, we're going to get into mystical Kabbalah, which, because I'm an occult study nerd, I'm super excited about that.
And that book had no good information, Trav. I don't even know why you spent time reading that the first time around. We should have read Aleister Crowley's Goetia.
That's a reflection of the listener.
I already studied that book. I don't need to go back with it.
I mean, what actually?
Aleister Crowley Goetia had one great chapter, just one. The rest of it.
No, I know what chapter that was. That was the chapter where we actually get to see the demons.
Hell no, it wasn't. No, that's actually in the foreword. I don't even think it was written by Crowley. The one chapter I'm talking about was in the foreword. Yeah, it was in the beginning. But then again, that's because, you know, if you don't know any better, of course you're going to be like, oh my God, cool spirits.
I remember when I first got that book, I was really intimidated because I was like, I don't have a metal shield.
Right.
I don't have a gold ring. The book.
So that's part of the reason why I'm writing my book, because it's like some of this stuff has been so thoroughly established in the etheric plane that we don't have to do it anymore. That's why it's so easy now. Check this guy out.
Dang,
Is that Citri?
That ain't Sidri. I don't know why he's standing up like that.
Is that Forrest?
Yeah, 31.
It's Forrest.
Yeah, and look, when they say, in these occult books, when they say in the form of a strong man, that's what they mean.
Strong.
The symbol of Yesod, that's a symbol of Yesod right there?
Right. That's when they say strong man, that's what they're talking about. I'm not making that up. What's his name? William G. Gray said that. And then
symbolic.
See it. It says here, the 31st spirit is for us. He's a mighty president, and he appeareth in the form of a strong man. We saw that same thing describing Gabriel and Yesod, right? And this is not the only time that appears in the Goetia. I think there's two other spirits who are strong. In other words, you look at the depictions and the words of these entities, you're going to find that there's a symbolic meaning behind what the hell's going on. Any spirit that's riding on a crocodile, you got to think about crocodile. A crocodile is both amphibious, it lives in the water, and it lives on the land. What's the water represent?
Subconscious mind.
There we go. Now look, Samkhya Darshan, spirit number 4, he's also described as pretty strong. Not as strong as the last guy. He ain't as strong as the other dude, though.
No.
But why? Why is this included here? What's the point of drawing a goetic spirit like that? Well, symbolically, what do you think that would represent?
Is it fire?
Lingam.
A strong foundation, aka Yesod. It's working with the Yesodic plane.
Right. So people get so lost. Oh, well, Trev, how do I invoke them into physical existence? Because I got to see it to know it's real. You're missing the point. We're not dealing with something physical. It's almost as if you've got
72 motherfuckers in your head.
There you go. You got said it. Couldn't have said it better.
No, seriously, I was watching this guy today in my way to work, and he was saying that a real magus, a real magus is not going to look these 72 demons physically the way that people think. It's like a real magus is going to actually find out the inner self of himself, of herself. That's what a real magus is looking for, the inner self. The rest of the shit is all bullshit. Like the rest, just find the inner self and you find yourself a real magus. I was like, just so much like Travis right there. Just finding yourself, man. You'll be able to do everything you want once you find yourself, the true self.
Once I contact the police, then I have no need to physically evoke these spirits.
Correct. They will come to you actually. Because you activating all these energies, bro. You switching the energies so people will be able to sense it. Like today,
Trav, why can't you be more like Hecate? She reaffirms my identity as a star seed.
Let me give you some Xanax, brother. I'll give you some Xanax.
Lord.
That's just it though, right? A lot of people, like I know when I first got into goetic demons and stuff, I was expecting them to appear in a certain way. They never appeared the way how I had expected, nor did the experiences that followed afterwards, because they are formulas. They are elements. They are tattvas. They are mixtures of gunas. They are literally alchemical formulas and equations. Right. So matter comes around that, and it's quite extensive.
Right. This is why it's so important to go back and get this lesson, because you can go back to what we were studying before and understand it at such a higher level. If the physical plane has a combination of different gunas and elementals, well, there are some that didn't quite make it to the physical yet. There's some that are still in the etheric, in the astral, and the mental. And if people are having trouble and complication working with goetic spirits, you know you're not working with no angels. No, you're not, because those are even more complex than the goetic spirits. It's not about angels and demons, right? It's not Christian. We're not talking about heavenly forces and hell forces. We're talking about, this is one of the best ways to describe the hierarchy of the type of data that you're working with, right? So these goetic spirits, they're very close to the manifest human dimension. But the further up you go, it gets further away from the manifest dimension. So it's gonna seem a bit more alien, a bit more foreign, and it's gonna cover a more comprehensive space. That's why these archangels, what they work over is like nationwide, planetary wide, like they work with big subject matter. Whereas somebody like Gamigan, who was a strong man, is gonna work with something very specific and small. Or large, depending on. The point is, the more that you deprogram from this Christian perspective of angels and demons, the more that you can start to see this a little bit clearly. And the more that you start to understand that it's about consciousness and matter, again, you can start to see it more clearly.
You know how I see it, Travis? Like in atom structure. The levels of the energies, like the closer to the proton, electrons and and distal, the neutrons are closer to the proton itself, and it has that stronger connection. And the more that you activate, certain electrons or certain protons, you know what I mean? It gives them more strength to the energy itself.
Yeah.
You're saying I could set a Shem angel for the goal and use goetic entities to conquer the smaller and more specific objectives? Is that how the Goetia is meant to be used?
Could that be why every goetic spirit is linked to a Shemham angel? Could that be why?
Because the connections, the magnetic connections, the ion connections, that's how I see it.
Or the same formulaic equation.
Yeah.
It's like setting up action steps. Like you're literally planning a goal, but in the etheric realms. So you have your end game, and then you have your steps. and you have these formulas that take care of each step.
Yeah. Combinations, formula combinations, negative and positive.
Mm-hmm. And what
I'm not meant to become a demon lord. I'm actually supposed to use this to actually benefit my life.
Shit.
Oh.
Yeah.
And even the lives of those that you can help.
Right.
Like, I try to give them the Goetia all the time. They won't accept my help.
No, not like that, right? Not like that. What do we learn from NLP? Sometimes, well, specifically from the great grandfather of NLP. The more stubborn and resistant an individual is, the more indirect you have to be. People who are open, you can be direct, but people who are resistant, you cannot be direct. To the level of resistance is the same level of indirectness that your approach requires. Secret game. Get it while it's hot.
Mm-hmm. I find that even just like now I have so much fun with it. Like I have yellow around me a lot because it's expansion. So like I am always throwing out yellow, or like according to the day, I'll like wear a specific color that has a specific function kind of tied to it. And so that automatically brings an experience.
You want to
So
have fun? Use blue.
blue?
Yes.
Yo, peace and greetings to Behemoth X. Welcome, brother. Welcome. Yeah, you know, the guy on the YouTube videos who's got the decked out ritual space with all the candles and super dark. Inferno. Hell
I
yeah.
know. I follow some of those.
Oh, bro, damn. Don't tell. Oh, bro, that's fire as hell. That got me like the early days.
Hell yeah. Awesome possum.
It's very awesome.
So yeah. This is good stuff. Wonderful stuff. Just remember, when you're looking for the soul, you're looking for what you actually are, when you're looking for the purpose, it is not to be found in expressed matter. It is something that is transcendental, something that is metaphysical. So that means if you can define it and label it in terms that have degree, right, form and shape and color and all that stuff, that ain't it yet. Keep looking.
Wait, Trav. So me identifying as an oppressed black man in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not my soul.
No. It's also not the James Brown music or the curly nappy hair. That's not your soul. It will not be found in the physical plane. This is what the earliest scriptures speak of. This is what all of the scriptures speak of, really. No matter what religion or practice you follow, all of them say this. All of them say this. But again, like I mentioned also, all of matter has a common origin with consciousness. So the potential to unlock truth, to realize truth, it is inherent within matter. Yeah, it's inherent there. But again, you have to look at it from a perspective that is beyond identifying with matter.
Right. And then when you do that, that's when you can start utilizing matter for that recognition. That's when it becomes your tool.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you're not limited to using a Bed Bath and Beyond candle versus a dollar store candle. Because the point isn't the tool. The point is, what are you accessing with? What are you using that tool for? How are you using that tool?
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have to come in the room with the tool out. Or however the meme goes. Young folks, y'all know that meme.
Right
Mm-hmm.
here it says I need 2 black candles, a red candle, a cup of wine, and a firecracker. Travis, so I don't need to buy all that.
Maestro, what happened to your mic?
Hello?
Right.
There you are.
This book I'm reading says I need 2 black candles, a red a red rope, and a firecracker. So you're saying I don't need any of that to get my rituals done?
What I'm saying, left hand path Urkel, is if you understand the symbology that those things are meant to represent, then you're 75% of the way there. Because if you don't have access to those tools, if you know what they're meant to represent, then you can use something that's relevant to you. You were just talking earlier, and Arius also mentioned it's not so much about the frameworks. Arius said you can have 100 different frameworks, but if you're not able to see yourself within that framework, actually using it in your personal day-to-day life, it's not, yeah, what's the point? It's no good. So if you understand why you need a black candle and you can't get a black candle, you can utilize something that is relevant to your life. If you don't have a fancy, expensive black mirror, maybe you can just cut your phone off. I dropped mine recently and it's cracked now.
And better yet, if you even can get on the depths of understanding tattvas and gunas, and understand what's being represented there, then you even have more of a variety of the tools at your disposal. If at that point you even need them, because at that point you can even just switch your states of consciousness throughout the ritual in order to perform the necessary function.
There we go.
Right. Exactly. And that's one of the experiments I've been doing. Like I just concentrate on the taoists themselves and I let the subconscious itself to express and say what it means for the inner self. Yeah. There we go.
What's he got that bag? What's he got in that bag?
Uh-oh.
What's in that bag?
Got that Zaza pack.
Same thing he got on his table.
The elements.
Expressed. We working with the same thing here.
No, one's right-hand path, one's left-hand path.
See that sun? See the sun external to the fool? Well, the sun is internal to the magus on top of his head.
Ooh.
Y'all not looking at these cards, man. Y'all not analyzing these cards.
Fuck, man.
When I was a child, I spake as a child. When I became an adult, I put away childish things.
That is really saying that tarot cards are childish. So what you're saying, I need the infernal dragon deck in order to use my tarot. That's what I'm hearing.
You can get the unicorn deck. That works too. Inferno.
I love it.
Kundalini Arohanam. You want to know who the demon lord in the Vedic system is? You want to work with these demonic spirits safely? Channel this dude.
Who that dude is? No.
That's an angel in disguise.
Hey. This bad boy transcends angel and demon.
Oh,
what? There's something more powerful. That's impossible to my model of the world.
Good. This is how I keep I won't say it.
How he
I don't
gets
want
to
to scare
hold people.
I don't want to scare folks.
Oh yeah, like that hasn't happened already.
If I say the wrong words, people get scared.
Trav's a demiurge. He's an archon. He's stealing our melanin through Facebook.
Well, welcome to Black News Network. And it turns out Travis Magus was actually an archon this entire time. He switched it as Vedic information. We all know it just came from Egypt, but he I can't do it anymore.
Demonic entities.
He's trying to steal melanin. Your melanin is mine.
So you believe that your melanin can be stolen through Facebook? You worried about me? You got bigger problems than that.
I don't use Facebook anymore, everybody. We have to use Black. My very personal, I built it myself, my Black social media occult website. We can't use Facebook anymore.
Ooh, nice one.
Is it-
It reminds me of inner light activation.
you don't say. All right, don't tease the people, guys. Don't tease the people.
I'm Doctor Strange, Joe. That's all I gotta say.
I'm evil Doctor Strange. I'm Doctor Strange in the What If series.
11-11.
Woo!
That means that your spirit guides are there and they're guiding you to your most divine potential. But to do that, you need to buy my package.
Yeah, you have to hit the like button in order to receive a message from your angels. You have to do it right now.
Oh shit! I get those fucking stuff, dude. What the fuck am I getting that shit for? And I didn't even click any of those buttons, and I still get them.
Horny angels are in your area. Click now to find out.
I found that there's 42 and there's 72. They're very close. I can't find them. So this guy said to send him $144 and he'll find all the entities around me. He said that there is 72 demons and then he'll send 72 angels my way for $1,000.
Aye.
That's a good deal. I heard it.
All right, everybody. I'm logging out because I found this new person in our Fortnite squad who just now started. So that means easy lobbies. And will get me a couple crowns before I get back to my writing.
No. You dominate that, Trav.
I tried to, even though sometimes I have to get a book on the subject.
I'd be the best Fortnite player 101 with my 30-day course.
He's all quiet.
He's like, shit, man. It was only $100.
I was gonna show one of those books that we showed from the other night, but this is not the audience for that.
Nope.
Not the audience. I had to resist. All right. So check it out, everybody. I'm gonna leave now. I hope that you had a great time. I hope that you realize that you know more than you give yourself credit for. I hope you realize that what you are is way more vast and amazing than your previous labels and limitations, right? Yes, you're your body. Yes, you're your mind and your thoughts and your feelings and your memories. But guess what? You're something that is beyond all those things. Those things represent a fraction of what you actually are, a shadow. So the more that you spend time in meditation, the more that you spend time being aware of your subtle actions and your subtle behaviors, the more that you can start to recognize what the truth actually is. Because a lot of your behaviors are done on autopilot. Let's just face it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just understand what's happening. That's how you can transcend the flesh, transcend matter, is by understanding the difference between matter and soul. Now, like I said, enlightenment comes in stages, it comes in levels. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. It doesn't matter what anybody else, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. Do you. Do the best you can.
Spiritually.
Spiritually.
Not just prakriti way. Spiritually.
Right. Spend time doing the work. Spend time doing your shadow work.
Fuck
Don't make
shit,
it
man. I gotta work on that shit, bro. I gotta work on that shit. Oh shit, yeah. I gotta do my homework.
And the main reason I say stay away from the clip off is because I know 90% of y'all don't have the structure to deal with it. So please take Deion Fortune's advice, take Gareth Knight's advice, and leave it alone.
I'm the 1%.
You can't handle your shadow work. You damn sure not going. I'll put it like this: when Professor Xavier went into Scarlet Witch's mind, he found Wanda buried underneath a pile of rubble. That's gonna be you working with the clip off. You're gonna be in your subconscious mind somewhere while your autopilot nature takes over and causes all kind of havoc because you don't have that framework.
And it causes real chaos, right?
Right.
Shake us.
Now, in the future, if you decide you might want to take my class and learn from the expert, you might have a better chance. But I'm not here to promote. Not yet.
Expert? Well, what's that? How does one become an expert?
Well, you got to know more than everybody else.
Not from a Jedi.
You guys remember in the beginning when we started this group, we used to talk about the school, the magicians. You remember the school? You remember that we each one of us, we have like a different titles. One was the librarian. You were the superintendent. You guys remember that shit? You remember that shit? Oh shit! We're gonna do this again, yo.
And I wonder if that's gonna happen in a different type of reality. I don't know. I think you need like goggles or something for that.
I wonder what's going to happen first. The Mage's Mansion in the virtual or Mage's Con in the physical?
I think the other one.
I don't know. I'm still aiming for that ashram in the physical.
We shall see. We shall see.
Uh-oh. Megas Con? You said we're going to have a Megas Con?
It's going to be so cool, guys.
Everyone's going to come and show off their books.
Have like 3 suitcases?
Right. All in due time. All in due time. But for now, be good to yourself. Maintain your frame. Stop getting distracted.
Oh. What am I without my distractions, Trav?
Exactly. Answer that question. Find out. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. Stop it.
Yeah. Right. Don't have to suffer shit. That's one of my philosophies every fucking day.
All right. Let me catch this newbie before they turn to a different.
Right,
all right.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace, guys. Peace out. Peace.
Yeah, love you guys. Bye.
Alora, see you around, man. We got a contact, dude.
I'll see you around, dude.
Forget your red cup, the Akash egg, right?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Shit is
Does
on.
that activate my inner light?
Right. Yeah. Don't forget that. If you know, you know.
I think there's an Ace of Cups and a dragon involved. I don't know.
All right.
Peace out.
This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX 777. For real this time. I love you guys. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Personal space invader. Personal space invader. Strange how you